Kotaku during our break, and I found an article that says, title, Metroid Dread file size is smaller than a Call of Duty update by Zach Zweinzen.
No shit. It's almost because it looks like it does.
Well, that's the thing. Apparently, Metroid Dread is 4.1 gigabytes, and the last Call of Duty update was over 10 gigabytes.
So what is this article trying to prove?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Nintendo...
There's a lot more uncompressed
Hold on.
graphics and audio going on in that Call of Duty update.
Nintendo is notoriously very good at compression. It's the reason the GameCube discs were small.
Yeah.
They're very good with compression. They have this
They are.
They have this proprietary compression algorithm that works really well.
I don't even know what the largest SD card that you can use in the Switch is.
Middle out algorithm.
But here's the thing. That probably compressed Metroid Dread from, like, let's be generous and say 8 gigs down to 4.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to output 4K or anything like that.
So, couple of things to note. Number one, 4K textures are very large.
Yep.
Okay, when you are being expected to be played on a 4K TV or monitor, you need to include much larger textures, and they are hard to compress.
Yes.
Number two, the Nintendo Switch does not support Dolby Atmos.
Sound is
also, very hard to compress. And a lot of games, because of things like Dolby Atmos and DTS and surround sound and stuff, store their files in as lossless a format as they possibly can.
Correct.
Should they do that? Maybe not. Also, when you are running a game off of a computer or when you're running a game cross-platform, so Xbox One to, you have to account for hard drives and solid-state drives, which load at different speeds, so you have to include multiple versions of the same texture in order to load in level of detail.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, like...
In addition to high-level animations as well.
Various opinions about the current state of Call of Duty aside, those games are complete fucking packages. They're like...
And they also have, you also have multiplayer.
There's a campaign with cutscenes. There's a competitive multiplayer, a cooperative multiplayer.
Well, I don't know about you guys,
but it's a lot of assets.
I, for one, am shocked and awed at this news that Kotaku delivered. I mean, where would we be without this journalist telling us that?
Were you saying that was a very reactionary headline?
I just truly, I feel the outrage just boiling within me.
There's a lot of Nintendo fanboys defending them because of
but
how
again,
small it is.
What was the intention of that writing? Was it
the intention
for or against anything?
Here's the thing. I agree with it. The intention of the writing was to be like, games are too big, which we've said before.
I agree.
Yeah.
Call of Duty especially is like...
It's such a...
But to use Metroid as a framing device... Also, let's say that I'm playing Halo Infinite, and Halo Infinite comes out and it's 100 gigs.
All right.
Because the Master Chief Collection is like 120.
Yeah. Right, but that's also 4 or 5 games with all different netcodes and...
Yeah.
Sure. But let's just say, for the sake of it, that Halo Infinite is 100 gigs, right? I'm playing it on my Xbox Series X, which has a terabyte hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using 1/10 of the hard drive.
Yeah.
Metroid Dread is 4 gigabytes on a system that has a 32 gigabyte hard drive. So I'm using 1/8 of the hard drive.
I got you.
Now I know you can expand it. I know you can expand it with SD cards, but there is clearly a difference in expectation between file sizes on the Nintendo Switch and file sizes on the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5.
But if you can instigate a flame war in your comments, then
hold on a second.
You?
The Switch has a 32 gigabyte.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Do they make flash drives bigger than that these days?
Well, you can expand it with SD cards.
I mean, you have to. Have you ever seen that there are physical Switch games out there that have on the box like you can't play this unless you have external storage as an option?
Yeah, because they're bigger than 32 gigs.
Yo, man, they need the expansion pack for the N64.
Yeah, the RAM.
The extra RAM. Oh my god.
But
I mean, so
I agree with both sides of the thing.
I do too.
Nintendo is notoriously good at compression.
Yeah.
And it is impressive that they can get these games like Breath of the Wild is like 12 gigs. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, Mario Odyssey is pretty small.
But also, you're programming for one console that will output at 720. So cool it a little bit, okay? Like, what's it called? Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is programmed only for the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to worry about the PS4's hard drive or a computer's hard drive or anything like that.
Yeah.
That game is 30 gigs.
That could fit on an
and
SD card.
it looks phenomenal in 4K. So maybe cool your jets.
Well,
a little bit.
They went with the most extreme and egregious example they could, which is Call of Duty.
Yeah, and also, okay, it is quite like it is a textbook example of comparing apples to oranges. It's like the two games are so different that they're
in scale and scope.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. There you get absolutely no value from a direct comparison of both of them. It's just a completely different league. It's like
but you get people going at it.
It's like if back back when the 3DS was out, if I made an article that was just like, did you know that the average 3DS game is smaller than like a PS5 or a PS4 game? It's like, well, yeah, no shit. Like, yeah. And also Metroid Dread, it's mostly side scrolling. It's 3D, but it's mostly side scrolling, isn't it?
So you only have to render everything one direction.
That is
also, that game looks bad. Anyway, let's get into the podcast.
Oh, woof. You're really going to leave it with that?
No, just kidding. When I say looks bad, I mean I'm going to buy it because it looks fun to play, but the graphics don't look like... The graphics look like it's about 6 gigabytes.
Shadow Complex.
Yeah.
So congratulations on compressing that from a DVD size into a smaller size.
That actually would have been a better example. Compare, well, what's the size of Shadow Complex? Because it
Probably
looks...
a few gigs. I mean, it's just...
Shadow Complex was
just embrace like
XBLA arcade game, which they were limited to 2 gigabytes.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, well, in that case, Metroid Dread is actually pretty bad at compressing its data.
Suck it, Nintendo.
I'm actually looking forward to playing that game.
No, I am too.
Me too. It looks good.
But it is just God. I think it's still also not to temper expectations for anyone who's super excited, but isn't it also a $50 game?
Yes.
Which is like.
Yeah, where's the rest of my gigabytes? I get what you're saying.
No, that's not what
I get what you're saying.
No, that's where I was going with it
I'm paying per gigabyte here. Call of Duty gives me 250 gigabytes for $60.
Yeah.
What am I paying $50 for?
Should have brought this
for 4?
No,
come on, Nintendo.
I'm 100% with Austin. It's like, well, fine. If I'm only getting a percentage of the gigabytes, why is it not a percentage of the price? Yeah.
If you're still listening, we are back with part 2 on the development and release of the official adaptation of Harlan Ellison's horror sci-fi classic, I Have No Mouth, and I Must Scream by Studio Cyberdreams. This, of course, being a part of our podcast annual celebration of all things spooky for Halloween. Last week, we got a little bit into the background of our author at hand, as well as the origins of the company, now assigned with the impossible task of translating such a provocative work of fiction into the interactive realm of video games. This is Hot Button. I'm Randall Beatrice, here with Austin Blakesley, and host of giving us the complete rundown of how this point-and-click adventure title from '95 found its way into disturbing us over 25 years later, Mr. Matt Nudeboom.
Zug.
Matt, so what was next for our fine folks as they pieced this nightmare together and we would know it as today?
Well, just so where we last left off.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be 1995.
What's his name?
Proper.
David Sears.
David Sears was going to spend a week with Harlan Ellison to help him write his script.
At his home.
At his home,
Yeah, he was staying, he must have stayed at a guest bedroom or something.
Yeah. Which is just straight out of Mank. It's all I can think about.
He stayed on the pile of the rest of the bricks that didn't get nailed.
His pillow being a dead... what was it?
Gopher.
A dead gopher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know that was like a gopher that was just fucking with his lawn, and then he took them out.
It was like what do you call it? Caddyshack. Harlan succeeded in killing the gopher. He dropped he dropped Molotov cocktails down there. So up to this point, we've talked about Cyberdreams, their first 2 games. They were very successful in bringing in 2 very famous artists and connecting them with their development team. First H.R. Giger,
yes,
and then Sid Mead.
Darkseid.
Darkseid, and then Sid Mead with Cyber Race, who worked on the cars of Blade Runner and did many other movies. So
Fucking sick.
so now we have here, they want to work with Harlan Ellison, and so they bring in David Sears. They hired him. He was a journalist for Compute Magazine,
Yeah.
and they bring him in only to tell him that, hey, your very first job as a game producer is going to go work with Harlan Ellison at his home. And of course, he knows that
I'd jump at that opportunity. Why not?
I mean, it's just such a. Originally, David Sears, as we had mentioned, he was expecting A Boy and His Dog or Repent Harlequin, because those are well known. Also, A Boy and His Dog, post-apocalyptic. Definitely, it's primed for survival horror off the bat. But he hears "I have no mouth and I must scream."
The least accessible,
Literally the least accessible of Harlan's works, and thinks like, what have I just gotten myself into? Like, this is insane. So certainly a situation to make you feel in over your head. And on top of that, Sears was already a fanboy of Ellison's work, actually. He knew all about not just the author, but also his works. And so imagine being a fan of one of your favorite artists.
That's the dream.
So, but the
Cyberdream.
But the other thing is, imagine being the fan of one of your favorite artists and then realizing, oh shit, if we poorly produce this game,
he's gonna hate me.
Yeah, imagine that.
Email me dead gopher.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah.
And he'll like, you also want him to acknowledge and respect video. Like, there's a lot to prove.
There's a lot
on the line.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot at stake here, and so obviously he's gonna feel the pressure. And he didn't want to damage Ellison's reputation with a bad game, but.
Because we know what he would do about it.
Yeah. Oh god, he would hold a grudge against you for the rest of your life for sure. Yeah. The good news is, Sears reported that Ellison was welcoming and genuine, but
nice.
To quote, he did not tolerate idiots. So that was a direct quote from him, which I think is a very accurate summary of Harlan Ellison.
To the point.
To, provide some context, Harlan Ellison was notoriously. Just
picture Abe Simpson shaking his fist at the cloud.
Yeah, he was a curmudgeon, and he was.
Well, that's a bit extreme. It was directed what irritated him.
Yeah.
But otherwise, all around passionate guy.
Very passionate. I would say he was passionate. He was argumentative, and he was combative. He was not afraid to get in your face and argue with you. So he had developed a reputation as that.
I respect him.
No, it is in many ways respectable. Video game translations are very hard to do, so imagine walking into that scenario.
Yeah.
So Sears reported that he was a welcoming, gracious host. Here is where we have really can pull back the curtain and just see the creative process of this author working on this game and just going through it, and it's like, see how the sausage is made, so to speak. So
with a typewriter.
With apparently. A typewriter, yeah. So
gross.
Harlan, he agreed to this project because he said specifically he had never done a game before and he was interested in taking on the challenge. So
that's the best response.
That is,
to that.
Despite not being a gamer and not owning a computer.
No, and which is like mad respect for this guy who was just like, he wasn't going to back away.
Mm-hmm.
And
he was up for the challenge.
One of the things Harlan Ellison was also famous for is he published a lot of cultural critique just on everything, television, society, sci-fi in general, of course.
I want to read this stuff.
Yeah. And so one of the things he critiqued was the state of computer entertainment. Obviously, back then, for sure, he probably saw a lot more potential than what was...
what he was drawing conclusions from.
I have no citation of this, but it is not hard to believe that he probably just absolutely roasted computer games, especially in the early 90s. He probably was like, "This is trash."
He probably played an Amiga, and he's like, "This is bullshit."
That's what I'm thinking. He probably played. He probably saw like a couple of prime examples.
Super Mario Brothers. Ugh.
Why not Super Mario Sisters? Why so patriarchal? Huh?
Yeah. Well, that's why I didn't even feel like he had access to like those consoles. It was probably more in the Commodore and there was plenty of amazing stuff.
He didn't even own a computer.
No, I knew he didn't own a computer, but I just more meant from his like own. Just anecdotally like reading about it.
I mean, it makes sense. Imagine like Elite was a very famous video game series. Imagine being like hearing like Elite. This game was like was absolutely groundbreaking. And then you play Elite, and it's like literally just a black screen for space and a couple of lines for spaceships, and thinking like, this is what people think is amazing. This is awful.
Yeah, someone took the song "Space Truckin' by Deep Purple and made it boring. That's my review of Elite, the original Elite.
That's unfortunate. That song slaps.
So
Yeah. He looked at the computer
jam.
games and he said, "I have a mouth and I'm still screaming."
Yeah, just totally, just giving like this Seinfeld like delivery.
The task that lay before Sears and Ellison was fleshing out the story's sparse characterization and plot.
Yeah, really expanding upon the.
There is, if you haven't read the short story, it's a quick read, but it's there's
a quick read for a reason.
It's an effective read.
Yes, and there it really is. I think one of the characters, Gorister, he really gets like maybe like 2 sentences describing him, and that is his character. There's no characterization. The plot is like there's like a little bit of world building, but like just to get the
Not
story
a lot.
going.
Yeah, it's just like a paragraph every once in a while.
And so they knew
up.
going in. Even Harlan Ellison knew going in that it's like we need to flesh out.
I mean, he was still interested in it this many years later to want to explore the world.
It's a really good point that it's like, do you think like when they showed up and said like, yo, we want to adapt one of your works, and they were like, it was like, yeah, which one? I have no mouth and I'm a screen. You think Harlan was just like, really? Why? Like what that one?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. But I mean, like if it still was that important to him personally, then
I think Harlan probably was a little bit tickled that someone had taken that much of an interest and been like, yeah.
I mean, you said he was prolific. Like he published a lot.
Oh,
and
yeah,
this was,
a lot of stuff.
What year was this?
This would be
94?
93. Well, 93.
Okay.
So this process in particular, the very start, would have been
the game
93.
was okay.
Yeah. So it was published
2-year
95.
development time. That makes sense.
2-year development time. Yep.
A little under 30 years after I Have No Mouth was initially
Yeah.
published.
Imagine doing that much writing and like kind of remembering where you were at that state of mind, like when you.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like 25 years or so is like that's enough time for like your personality changes, like what you thought was good writing and what you you liked.
Clearly his didn't.
No, he stayed just as cynical.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but I mean, there's a bit of the themes of that remain evergreen, like
yeah. I think, and well, as you can see,
it's not like any horrible fear of war and like technology went away by 93.
And you know, the other thing too is I suppose the sparse narrative of the story, I think he probably was excited by the fact that it was more of an open canvas, I feel like, versus like if he was restricted to like, you got to respect the canon of this story, I feel like he would have probably felt very, limited. So it did give him a chance
and I'm sure we'll get into it, but there are character changes that I actually like, I support. Like I think
no, he did.
It was smart.
I agree that
very thoughtful, like
this game 100% expanded on the characters in a way that adds so much to that story, for sure.
I read I Have No Mouth probably like a couple weeks ago after we played it. And I read I Have No Mouth in high school.
Same, that was the first time.
And it is good read and an effective read, but it is hard to follow.
A little bit.
And reading it after playing the game does recontextualize a lot of it. It does make it easier to follow.
It also made it, it kind of gave me some sort of internal visual to like keep that.
Yeah.
To keep things rolling, because it does. There is a little bit of a scatterbrained kind of base to it without the.
For sure, actually, now that I think about it. I mean, I read it after I saw like screenshots of the game and the synopsis, and because I had done that, now that I think about it, it's like you can picture what Am looks like because he's depicted in the game as this like the Colossus sort of thing, the monolithic sort of thing.
Also, you kind of almost read the voices the way that they are.
Absolutely. So what pretty much kicked off their creative process is Sears sat down with Ellison and prompted him with the question, why were these characters saved by Am? Like, what makes these 5 characters special? And that made Ellison realize that no one had ever asked him that question before in interviews about the story. Like,
really?
why these people?
I'm almost shocked to hear that. Like, that was like the first thing that I...
And so this prompted him to immediately sit down to his Olympic manual typewriter. And begin to work. So it's like that's all it took was another writer asking he could, he could think like, okay, I never thought about it. Why were these people saved? And that's where the concept comes from. Over the next several days, Harlan carved out deeper backstories for each of the characters. Ellison and Sears decided that the game would be split into 5 vignettes, so that's where the design comes from. Each based on one of the 5 characters, in which the player must navigate a series of ethical dilemmas to achieve a noble outcome for them. A very Harlan Ellison game concept for sure. Something you would be interested in. From the beginning, Sears reports, Harlan intended to address some very controversial topics, hoping to live up to a desire to give players a brand new gaming experience and introduce genuinely mature subjects to an art form where he felt it was lacking.
That he did.
That is ambitious and very respectful for an author who had never touched a computer.
And that is like, and it becomes evident almost immediately in that game.
Oh yeah,
like almost regardless of who you choose, because we should point out that it is technically non-linear. Like,
no, as we'll see, this game had a lot of ambition, and I think it did it very well. Actually, to quote Sears, it was an early attempt to tackle genuinely mature subject matter in an era where mature typically meant showing a heroine in a bra, which is true. Yeah, I mean,
does that almost sound like it was?
I mean, mature back then was basically like, you're going to see some titties in this game, Yeah. that was it.
I know, it almost sounded like a disguised slight at Night Trap or something, because it was like, this was 93.
Yeah.
That was like...
Oh my God, you're 100% right.
Exactly when that was all going down.
I wonder, Harlan Ellison, you must have heard the news.
Oh yeah, I mean, everybody heard the news.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I never made that connection before, but you're right. That might have been like a pretty much like a...
You don't bring up a nightgown and talking about video games of...
93. God, it's all coming together. Night Trap. If you haven't listened to that episode, that is all... That was a joy. Joy to record and play. Also another game I recommend. Definitely, you need to play it. That
has both of these games have that in common.
Yes.
You need to see it for yourself.
You need to see it for yourself. This game concept that they came up with required writing very lengthy backstories and developing additional material for the characters that are exclusive to the game. I can't emphasize how much of this writing is original to this game.
Mm-hmm.
As we shall see, all the characters are altered slightly from the original form. Some of the characters are altered entirely, like just
Nimdok especially.
Yeah, Nimdok especially. So that is a big part. Gorister goes from being, as we shall see, in the original story, he was a social activist, and Am makes him apathetic and listless and depressed.
That's right.
Which very, very late 60s. It's like, what's your version of hell? Being like an apathetic nobody.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't exactly like strike as hard as like Benny's fate.
So
in the lens of the mid-90s.
That is 100% true, actually. In fact, that'll actually play a factor later. The fact that Benny is so different and was so transformed from his original form. Sears comments on that later, actually.
But I understand what he was getting at when that was initially published, because it was basically like he took the proactiveness out of Gorister, and Benny was more of like, he was also meant to be like a very brilliant man, and it was like taking away his intelligence was meant to be a version of torment, but
flowers for Benny for sure. You take the brilliant scientist, now he's like an ape man, with a giant dong.
That's true.
I'll get to that. Oh no, it's a thing. It's in the script.
Okay.
So it was Sears' job to steer the adaptation and take notes, but Harlan, being the experienced and expedient writer that he was, actually needed little guidance on this work. He actually did not need much. Yeah, he actually was very self-propelled and self-driven and wanted to see this come to fruition. As a result, Sears had a lot of unexpected free time while staying at Harlan's residence. At first, Harlan offered Sears distractions, such as suggesting he spend time on the home's balcony to enjoy the view, which... One wonders what Harlan thought, how long he thought he could just sit out there and just enjoy the view.
I also have some heroin.
Yeah. You like drugs? Actually, I think famously, Harlan Ellison was famously pretty clean. Yeah. In fact, I think I'm sure that he probably drank, playing, but he was...
of course, he's a writer. But I still love that. But I like that all of his, demented ideas didn't come from...
No, he was... Famously in the late 60s, early 70s, when he was offered drugs at a party, he refused it. I think is unverified, but my memory serves me correct. He said no thanks, I still haven't come down yet, or something to that effect, or like I'm still waiting to come down, basically saying like this dude is basically.
That's a good retort.
Yeah, yeah, he was. Yeah.
No, thanks, man. I'm high on pain.
Yeah.
And it'll never go away.
Yeah, he was high on his own demented imagination.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I butchered that quote.
His own prison.
Yeah. So Ellison, I guess, I don't know what Ellison expected. It's just like, oh, here, just enjoy this. Come admire this painting I have. Yes, it's very nice. Oh, I thought that would kill a few hours. I don't know. I don't know what to do anymore. But anyway, obviously.
Stare at the drinking bird. You see the bird drinking?
It really, it's like Ellison, do you think people just get like
as
fascinated?
trapped in their own thoughts as he does?
Yeah. It's like, do you just think people are like, just like everyone below you is just like they can just like look at like a drinking bird and just be like, that's it. That's all they do all day. These simpletons.
He gives them this rock. Just
yeah. Yes, exactly. So obviously Sears grew tired of the distraction. So eventually I think he kind of just sat down with Ellison in his office and they just kind of talked while Ellison, typed out his stuff. They talked about common interests. And so they talked about, obviously, sci-fi. David Sears was a big fan of the Sandman comics by Neil Gaiman.
Oh.
Harlan, in response, took out his phone, called Neil Gaiman's phone number from memory, and then said, hey, Neil, I've got this guy who really loves your work. And he hands the phone to him, and he winds up talking to Neil Gaiman for an hour about his work and all his sci-fi shit.
I kind of love this guy, honestly.
Yeah, from memory, and this is the era before cell phones. He knew his house number.
Holy
Neil Gaiman
shit.
had just gotten home from the airport, and Harlan Ellison's just like, I got this guy who really likes your work, man. Can you just talk to him for me or whatever? And it's like,
this needs to be a movie.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And then later that week, I guess because it probably worked very well in like getting Sears to get off his back.
Right.
He arranged a lunch with J. Michael Straczynski, the producer and writer of Babylon 5. He's apparently just friends with this guy.
Oh, that's so nerdy.
It is, yes. It is very nerdy. So I guess it must have worked pretty well because I guess David Sears was just like,
you're a dork, you're into this.
Yeah, David Sears was probably like, all right, that's good, just keep going. So
you want to meet who wrote the X-Files? I got them on speed dial too.
That would have been cool as hell.
Well, that was like, I read a story that I don't think you brought up in the first episode about Harlan Ellison. Got a job writing a movie adaptation of iRobot, not the one that came out.
Oh, I know, I'd assume not.
Because he was like the last living friend of Isaac
Asimov.
You know what?
Yeah.
I want to see his version of that.
Yeah.
I saw a mention of iRobot in the stuff I read, but I neglected to check like that. Yeah, that. But yes,
This dude just got like Asimov and Heinlein on speed dial.
You think Ellison's screenplay still had Will Smith quipping?
No, he actually famously saw the Will Smith version of the movie
and
and tore it to pieces. Yeah, yeah. Oh, of course. What do you think? I mean, that movie on its own was like, wasn't exactly a
it's entertaining schlock.
It's schlock. Yeah. So it's like, what do you think Harlan Ellison's going to do? He's going to absolutely tear it to shreds. So in the end, Sears testified that Harlan was an extremely gracious host. He said he very much enjoyed staying with him. He actually wound up staying an extra week, so 2 weeks.
Rules. Yeah.
Okay, and then took another 6 weeks on his own to polish up their game proposal, which came out to be a 130-page game proposal, which is like, that's
more than 13.
Yeah. I mean, well, so yeah, League goes from 13 to 130. It's like really fleshing this stuff out, and it gets bigger from there. I'll get to that. So the end of this 2-week session with Ellison turned out very well. He was very pleased with himself. And it produced this 130-page draft of their game proposal. But of course, a game proposal is not the same thing. You can't just hand a game proposal to developers and artists and say, make a game out of this.
Yeah.
Okay. The work was not done. In fact, they pretty much just the part with coming up with the concept was done. The lengthy proposal was still highly conceptual and needed to be converted into an implementable game design document. And this actually would be done by a different David entirely. Not long after Cyberdreams had been announced, and that the proposal accepted, Sears and Harlan were invited to talk about their intriguing project at GDC in LA as keynote speakers. So Cyberdreams, Cyberdreams made this announcement. GDC was like Harlan Ellison, how it's intriguing. Like, okay, how is this going to work out? So they brought them both to be keynote speakers in LA at the conference, which is,
cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Harlan Ellison was probably used to speaking at conventions. So it was here that another Cyberdreams producer, David Mullick, even first heard about the project. Furthermore, Mullock says that I Have No Mouth was his favorite short story of all time, which is like quite a...
That's some serendipity, I
yeah,
guess. Like,
it is serendipitous. So
it's just like imagine the luck, like the
well,
coincidental.
Also, too, it's just like, imagine like showing up and it's just like not just saying like I really like this short story, but like, wow, that was my favorite short story of all time. Like that specific short story. He actually even recalls feeling a bit envious of David Sears getting the role producing this game because he had never heard.
And he actually got to stay with him and stuff.
Yeah, he got to stay with him, and it was just like he had never heard of this schmuck David Sears. He was a journalist before then. That my words, not his. Keep in mind, the sources I have indicate he was another producer at Cyberdreams. He worked at the same company and never heard of this project or this guy working on this project with them. And I was like,
this was their third
game.
Yeah. So like, I remember, or I wonder if they were
in different projects.
Yeah.
Clearly,
he was involved with something else and was like, "Whoa, what the fuck?
What the fuck is this?" Because like, well, probably what happened is that Cyberdreams at this point had kept everything mum while they were getting the proposal, and now that it was announced,
didn't want to jinx it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they probably didn't want to spread the word because it's like, what happens if he came back and it was, the proposal was trash,
right?
So David Mullock says that he was like, wow, this is like quite an opportunity. I wish he says, man, I really wish I could have had that job. And as fortune would have it, he would soon have that job.
That's why I knew. That's why I said it was like.
So, before the event, Harlan announced to the audience that his co-speaker, David Sears, was a remarkable writer, and that before he would even proceed with the keynote, everyone in the room had to drop their business cards into a fishbowl on stage, apparently having to add, "Yes, I'm serious." That, like, people wouldn't... Yeah. David Sears, he said, was too good for Mississippi, direct quote, deserved a job out there in L.A.
Burn, Mississippi.
And that whichever card he fished out of the fishbowl would be David's new employer. 3 days later, David Sears had a brand new job at Virgin Interactive and left Cyberdreams. He picked that.
This story is amazing. Like, that is so
outlandish. He's just like, all right, Virgin Interactive. All right, David, here's your new employer. Go ahead. And Virgin was probably like, all right, well, fuck it.
Willed that into happening.
Yeah, we better fucking hire the guy. So... also, I don't know if Cyberdreams was located in Mississippi or David Sears was, he was living in Mississippi at the time, but I do find it hilarious that he said that he was too good for Mississippi and he had to go to LA of all places. What are you doing?
Get out of there.
So, and then that is how David Mullock wound up with the producer's role. To be clear, it was not clear from the multiple versions of this story that I read if it was the same event which these two things happened or separate ones, but either way,
the end result's the same.
David got the role as producer. I don't know if he then he was just like,
hey, I mean, he was good for it considering like the interest.
Oh yes, yeah. And as you'll see, actually, he did a remarkable job producing the game because, as I said, now it was time for the hard part of the job, which was making it. Yeah. So
I'm sure you'll get into this, but was Ellison like also a part of the choosing art and kind of like
yes he was
the way the stories branch and everything? Like, this
is, I think, in my opinion, the most most fascinating part of this whole development process because
he wrote multiple like epilogues for this.
It's fascinating because this is like the real game design process. He's not just writing this concept and handing it over to the designers.
He's conscious of how it can actually...
And it's really what you see here. This team of Mullock and Ellison is just is absolutely fascinating. So now it's time to take the game proposal Harlan and Sears had proposed and turn it into the defined game document. Mullock was responsible for designing many of the puzzles, elaborating on much of the proposed dialogue, and then establishing a framework so that the programmers and artists could turn the document into a game.
Right.
So it was Mullock who got a taste of Ellison's infamous personality versus Sears, who just sat there and went, wow, this is really good writing, because Mullock had to sit here and be like, no, this isn't going to work. So when presenting an early build...
Stepped on some toes.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, for sure. And it's like that's what the design process is like. You gotta straight up say like, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah. Or this isn't feasible.
So When presenting an early build of the game in Ellison's kitchen, Mullock had trouble finding a free outlet after Ellison had vaguely gestured towards one. This prompted Ellison to mutter another one of Cyberdream's brain trust right in front of him. The outlet was apparently hidden underneath a potted plant behind a booth. So
what is it? Like, is this a puzzle from the game? Like,
I didn't even think about it, but you're right. You're right. He was testing his puzzle solving abilities. That is too funny, right? But I mean, it was notable enough that it was like he must have said it. It must have kind of came off as an insult because Mullock like remembered it distinctly that it was just like the guy was kind of a dickbag. Yeah. So nevertheless,
is there an L in here? I just gotta don't censor me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
throw something out.
Yeah,
typewriter ribbon hits him in the head.
Yeah, did you find the outlet? Yeah, I found it like in the basement, like underneath, underneath some boxes. So
who needs outlets? I don't need outlets.
So, nevertheless, the two developed a friendly working relationship. The famously obstinate Harlan apparently responded very well to mutual criticism. Apparently, he was if you worked and you like showed that you were thinking about the work, he was fine with it.
That's when he earned his.
It earned it,
respect,
yes,
yeah.
and it did. So, and because you can see, Ellison would frequently insist on revising proposed dialogue, but Mullock says his edits were quick and his output remarkable. He said the edits were very well done.
Okay.
Likewise, Mullock could simply point out some bad dialogue Ellison had overlooked, saying, "Harlan, this is terrible. You can do better than this." Harlan would then promptly admit to the oversight and immediately go back for edits.
Respect game, I guess.
Yeah,
like you had to like
that was it. You had to game respect game. He saw that if like you were smart and were putting your brain into it, he would be like, you know what, you're right. This is bad. We need to go back. So, again, a lot of respect for that sort of attitude.
I want to know whose decision it was for him to hum along to "The Bird Is the Word," and because
that sounds like Harlan Ellison.
Yeah,
that sounds like Harlan Ellison for sure.
We should emphasize that there is something, and this is in the short story as well as the game. It's obviously very twisted with the tone, but like there's kind of some dark humor in it going on.
I think really that is like the game really winds up being more darkly comical than disturbing. Yeah, and it does. Yeah,
sure. But that's why I said even the story, like when they asked for weapons and one was like a super soaker.
Yeah,
and you're like
that's kind of funny.
Kind of funny. Like there's
So
it's fucked, but.
Mullock also says Harlan, aware of his own inexperience in game development, was surprisingly flexible and understood the practical limitations of gaming. So he was more flexible because he knew, like, okay, I'm not the expert here. I need to hand over some of this to Mullock. However, Mullock often needed to explain some of the medium's conventions to Harlan. Most importantly,
limitations.
Yeah. The conventions as like I think. The example they gave him was Harlan was like in the scene in Gorister. He's like, you need to let your wife off the meat hook. That's like metaphorical. Like you need to let your wife off the hook. And Mullock was like, no, dude, that's the first thing these people are going to do. They're going to click everything in the room.
Oh.
And he didn't grasp that in this.
You're coming up to the angle of like gamer think.
Yeah. So he's like, he had to explain like, the novelist thought is not going to translate into gamer thought the same way.
Interesting.
But most importantly, it was Mullock who claims that he convinced Harlan that players would not be satisfied if all of the endings led to brutal, crushing defeat. That is such
that's how they got the one in there?
Yes, it is such a pivotal moment in the development of this game. It will change a lot of how really like how this, I mean, the legacy the game had because he convinced him to add that ending, and also how the game was perceived by the public.
I mean, there were some initial reviews that found it impenetrable because they just kept seeing the bad endings.
The bad endings, because let's face it, that good ending was buried. You
would only know that if. Like, without a guide, if you really...
if you didn't have a guide, you would have spent days,
you just keep replaying it over and over. And
So
maybe what he wanted, I don't know.
Yeah. So after several months, the team had turned the 130-page proposal into a whopping 800-page design document containing more than 2,000 lines of additional dialogue.
Damn.
Mullock estimates that Harlan directly produced about 20% of the document, with the rest belonging to himself. So 20% is pretty significant, and probably even more so, Harlan was probably also responsible for a lot of just the straight dialogue that appears in that game. So
was it kind of decided upon at this stage that he was going to be giving his voice to the...
So that is pretty much part of my the next section, which is regarding the production of the game. So as I mentioned in the previous episode, Cyberdreams had a tendency, because they had such a small staff, they contracted out the development work of these games while they retained core creative control for their own company, but they contracted out the work itself, which is how you get the Dreamers Guild. Mm-hmm. So they contracted out to the Dreamers Guild for the development, the artwork, the production of it. Yeah. So they were considered to be one of the developers that had sufficient in-house talent to get this done. They employed a wide range of artists, developers are like, okay, these guys can get it done. And also they had a game engine called Saga, which is a point-and-click game engine. It was essentially a modified Scum engine, which was like, Saga, Scum, you can even tell. It's almost, you look at the two engines side by side and it looks...
Well, the UI and everything gives it away.
So they were like, this is good. It's a proprietary game engine. This works.
This is kind of at the, not the peak, but definitely in the midst of the LucasArts versus Sierra, like...
Yeah.
The time of...
Oh, yeah. Point-and-click adventure games were like... This was their heyday right now. This was their heyday for sure. So the Dreamers Guild, they put a lot of love into this game. They did a very good job with it. The artists chose specific art styles for each chapter. Nimdok's chapter is drawn in the Unsettling's perspectives using German Expressionism because he's German. Oh, we haven't mentioned that part yet, that Nimdok, he got the German accent in the audiobook.
Yes, well, that's what I was curious, because he did lend VO to the
audiobook.
Yeah,
and so I think that is what. So this is not. I don't have a citation for this, but you're right. Harlan Ellison, in the end, wanted to voice Am, and I think it was because he probably got a lot.
It's a good fit.
He was a great fit. Oh, you can't replace him. Yeah. And I think it was because of experience with the audiobook, having that direct, like he's wanted to be like, no, I have this idea of what Am sounds like. Yeah. I am just going to portray Am in this video game. And that's how you wind up with the game. If you want to hear Harlan Ellison as a genocidal supercomputer.
That caught me off guard.
He's Am. That's him.
There's almost some, like, a little bit of that shared foundation and even like a GLaDOS type character just like speaking with confidence and remaining menacing, but also kind of like
he's got a glibness to him.
Yeah.
He's like, he reminds me of Shodan from System Shock 2.
Yeah,
Shodan, like he kind of wryly mocks you throughout, and it has like kind of like a glib, sarcastic tone to it,
like halfway between Shodan and GLaDOS.
Yes,
because
sure.
the mocking,
like the mocking
is a little bit less serious than Shodan's.
Yes,
but not nearly as jokey as GLaDOS.
yeah. GLaDOS was purely like satirical and farcical.
But Am relishes in the like.
Yeah,
there are some lines that we just burst down laughing.
He completely steals one of the chapters.
He does, and it's so juxtaposed to what you're actually seeing that it almost makes it work even better.
It does, He saved that chapter in my opinion. Yeah, he does hum the bird is the word, which is I think Harlan Ellison probably came up with that. Oh God, that kid! Yeah, this game it really is amusing in many ways for sure. So Mullock commissioned film composer John Ottman. So he later worked on The Usual Suspects, Valkyrie, and the X-Men films, and Superman Returns.
All right.
He wrote 25 plus pieces of original MIDI music for this game, which is they put a lot of love into it. That's a lot of attention to detail. As I mentioned, Harlan himself provided the voice of Am.
Yes.
He also, and that is not the end of his contributions. Okay. He provided
Dead.
He provided his own image for the box art and the mouse pads that came with the game. Again, following along with the unique boxes that these games came in. They came with mouse pads with Harlan Ellison's image entangled in a web of computer circuitry, and it's so instantly identifiable.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And on top of that, Harlan not only wrote the preface for the official strategy guide entitled Apologia for Temptation, Apologia for Temptation.
Oh, is that like...
It's the intro to the official strategy guide. He wrote an essay for the strategy guide.
Of course he did.
Yeah, of course he did. Yeah. And he also provided the biographies of the 5 principal characters for the strategy guide. So he provided, even more
backstory.
Even more backstory, yes. The guide even concludes with a lengthy interview about the game written by J. Michael Straczynski, the creator of Babylon 5. Yeah,
marvelous.
Which is just like, he really, he put his back into this.
Yeah.
He took it really seriously. And in pre-release statements, Harlan promised that his foray into the gaming world would be a new experience for players and claimed that he designed the game to be unwinnable. Very, very significant event.
Which I understand ties into the themes, but not necessarily something that gamers would want as opposed to readers.
Wow, Randy, it sounds like you understand gamers and think that maybe they don't want to play a game that the principal author says you can't beat. Oh,
hey,
wow.
I'm kind of a little bit on Harlan's side, just as a defender of like let it die, or the point is to stop playing.
To stop playing. I think as we shall see, Harlan, he wrote this game like it's a work of art.
Yeah,
but I don't think he ever intended this game to sell well. I don't think he gave a shit for this game to sell well.
And I doubt he even labeled it as a video game.
Yeah.
Like I think it was like he wanted to transcend that into something different.
Well, you have to look at it like this. Like, he clearly has some critiques of the computer game industry, right?
Yeah.
In addition to that, he views it as this sort of challenge.
Yeah.
So he's going into this with like that mindset of like, I'm going to do something that these people are too much of pussies to do. And that's, making a game that's unwinnable is exactly something
Takeshi's challenge.
Someone like that would be like, you guys aren't going to do this. I'm going to do it. And the people making the game are like, but you can.
Like, but we're going to be brave enough.
Yeah. All right. Fine. It's unwinnable. All right. What's one of the chapters? It takes place in the Holocaust.
Yep.
What's the next chapter?
And you play the doctor who's friends with Mengele.
Yeah. What are you like? Yeah. Are you like one of the inmates? No. You're the doctor doing the experiment.
This is a bold ass thing. I literally like 10-15 minutes into our first playthrough, it's just straight up a concentration camp.
Straight up
you're
a
like,
concentration camp. Yep.
You're like, whew.
Yeah.
All right.
So the game shipped nearly 26 years ago to the day on a night just like tonight because it's Halloween.
Yeah.
I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream hit shelves. And that is, we're going to talk about the game we've got because we've gotten a chance to play it.
Yeah.
And I'll give a brief rundown of I got to give a rundown of the game because
No, I'm hyped to get into this. All these thoughts have been boggling around in my head for the last several weeks.
So so it's on Good Old Games.
Yes, it wasn't available for a while.
It was not. Yes.
Yeah, it was only.
It was also on Steam.
It got released on after.
After
Good Old Games. So we played on Good Old Games. The opening cinematic has Harlan Ellison as Am delivering the hatred monologue from the short story in bombastic villainous glory.
Hate.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Chewing the scene.
You're gonna,
You gotta
if I can find it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a lengthy intro. It is a very, very long intro for a 95 game because he dumps a lot of the exposition from the story onto folks, but he goes through each of the 5 principal characters in the midst of delightfully torturing them on screen.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro-instant. For you, hate.
It's great.
Oh,
I feel like I'm watching like just a demented version of G.I. Joe. Like, it's like
just the hate. Hate. So So that speech is pulled directly from the short story. Verbatim. So, and then he proceeds to introduce each of the 5 principal characters, starting with Gorster. The trucker with several hearts of gold. He is trapped in an electrified cage for locking his wife in an insane asylum.
Yes.
Benny, the King Kong with a King Dong. Sadly not usable in the game. The once capable and intelligent Benny has been symbolically transformed into an ape-man and is being stabbed by spears through the bars of an animal cage for descending into bestial cruelty during his life.
That's right,
yeah. Ellen.
The best chapter in the game.
Best chapter. The badass engineer. Yeah. Forever enclosed in a perpetually closing yellow elevator for... This is a big drop here. Becoming a rape victim in a yellow elevator while at work. I will say... Her chapter is quite good. Her story gets better. It's
pretty heavy. It's rough,
heavy,
but
yes.
it's handled respectfully.
Yes,
as you possibly could.
Well, because if you go into that and you're just saying it's like this woman's being tortured for being a rape victim, like that's that could
on its face kind of an off-putting.
It is off-putting,
idea, but
yeah, they do. Her story gets quite good. Nimdok, the old man turned German, because Harlan Ellison gave him a German accent in the audiobook, is now just straight up Nazi scientist. Because I guess the jump from being old German man to Nazi scientist is not a incredible leap.
Yeah.
Who through human experimentation during the Holocaust discovered
on children.
Oh my god. Yeah. Oh god, dude, you're reminding me now. Through human experimentation during the Holocaust, discovered several of the techniques eventually used by Am to rule all of creation. Okay.
Yeah, he's kind of directly tied into the...
He is, yes, which is also very significant, I feel like. And his form of torture, he is being burnt alive in a gigantic oven. Okay. The other characters are just like, okay, that seems kind of irritating. This man is literally like agonizingly being burnt alive, which is just like...
For eternity, yeah.
Yeah, for eternity, which we later discover is due to several unpaid parking violations. So, yeah. And then finally, say it all with me. Ted! It's so good.
He's kind of a schmeezer in the game.
Oh god!
I'm sure you'll get into this, but like in the short story, he's I guess he is the youngest and the most confident, and I guess portrayed as the least fucked up.
Yes,
he's kind of meant to be the straight man.
He's meant to be the audience fill-in. So,
but it's like in the game he's kind of really overly zealous and kind of confident, but. Yeah. But still, like, paranoid and...
So, in the story, he appears to be unaltered, but through his thoughts saying, like, all the other 4 characters
he's kind of delusional. And
it kind of implies that he's paranoid and delusional, and that plays a part in his story as well.
Yeah.
Ted, the shit-eating...
Most notably the ending.
Yeah. Ted, the shit-eating, scarf-wearing con man who defrauds rich women of their fortunes through the power of smugness alone.
That's right. Yeah, that is.
That's the story. Locked in a bird cage, getting laser pointer shot at his eyes. It's really bizarre seeing his torture because he just has these lasers. It's like, what is it like? I mean, I guess that probably hurts his eyes, but like,
yeah, as opposed to being shocked or
burnt alive. Yeah, I'll take the bird cage for sure. So. Basically, I mean, they're being tortured. It's a giant metaphor for hell, as you can see.
Yeah.
Finally, the premise emerges as a new form of cruel entertainment. Am announces that he has constructed individual psychodramas for each of the 5 characters to live out based on their past experiences. So, like a lot of traumatic stuff. The player is then free to embark upon their very own choose-your-own personal hell adventure. You can play any of the characters in order. Each of them has their own entire setup and chapter and setting and whatnot.
Yeah.
However, unbeknownst to the characters, and only revealed further into the game, outside forces have managed to hijack parts of Am's power, and through moral choices and confronting their pasts, the player can achieve good endings for each character that brings them closure and frustrate Am's scheming, paving the way for a final confrontation.
Yes, there are different degrees of fail states.
Yes,
because there are straight up game overs in it, but then there's other stuff that it's like, well, depending on your choices, how well did you get out of this?
Did you get out of this? So we did very well.
We did, I think so, for our first time. Like,
yeah. So The first one we went through, I'm going to go in the
order we did?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Which starts with Nimdok, actually.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Nimdok, we chose this one. I mean, we chose this one because we were looking for the shocking material. We knew this one took place during the Holocaust. And so the synopsis is that you were teleported to a concentration camp. Okay. I think you're trying to uncover what the lost tribe is for Am, which you kind of figure out. It starts out, you're the doctor. You're basically Joseph Mengele. You're knockoff Joseph Mengele.
Yeah.
And you have to do surgery on a child. Like, you literally, it says, like, perform surgery on, like, a fucking child and kill him. And, and it
plays with your expectation of wanting to kind of rebel against what you're, like,
for sure. Absolutely.
Predetermined.
And
like, what you're told to do.
So, changes. So, Nimdok in the story is, the only thing you know about him is that he's old. And that he sometimes wanders away from the group and comes back clearly traumatized. And also, the audiobook gave him a German accent. This entire concept of the concentration camp is an entirely new setup for the game, actually. So, I mean, it was... I don't know. What did you think? What are your guys' thoughts on this?
Of Nimdok's? I mean, if you want to go... I liked Nimdok's chapter. I thought it was
I actually thought Nimdok's was my favorite.
Yeah?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I did not expect that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's...
So since it's our first one, going into it, I'm not a fan of point and clicks because they're usually obtuse.
Yeah, no, traditionally I'm not either for the same reason.
But this one was surprisingly pretty straightforward. Well,
it allowed us to do more than I thought it would. Like, we didn't end up having to do pixel hunt or anything like that.
Not only that, actually. So, point and click adventures, the other hallmark is that they are merciless with mistakes.
Yeah.
You do something wrong, and it's like it just punishes you for it. And this game,
we had multiple saves just in case.
Just in case, yeah. And I kept creating multiple files. And the one thing I was surprised about is, I mean, the first thing we did is Nimdok. We just kind of fucked around, and it's like we were supposed to operate on a child. And instead, we took the scalpel, and we're like, "What happens if we use the scalpel on this assistant here?" And
it worked,
and we killed him.
Yeah.
And we were like, and you hear the alarm going off, and Nimdok is like, "I need to escape before the guards find me." I am not even joking. I was like dead certain a guard was gonna walk in.
That we already fucked up.
Yeah,
like,
put a bullet in our head, and no, but we just kept going, and which was the surprising thing.
Yeah.
Was like I expected the game to stop and tell us, no, you fucked up, go find the right solution to that puzzle. But we just kept going. That was, we didn't get stopped at all. And that was good because it encouraged that sense of like, no, explore this area, do like try out different things, really kind of encourage that sense of exploration. So
also Nimdok's chapter was building some backstory because there was like
a connection with Am.
There was a connection with Am there.
Yeah.
And also extremely fucked up.
Yeah.
It took place in a concentration camp.
Oh yeah, no, they didn't shy. There's a part where you need to cut a prisoner out of the barbed wire as he like is trying to climb over the fence, which is just like
But you have to give him anesthesia first.
Oh, that's right. You do need to give him anesthesia.
Or ether, as they call it.
Yeah, you talk to the like. You walk into a back room. There's just a bunch of like dead or dying children lying on cots, and you gotta go talk to them or whatever.
It's also revealed here that he was behind the serum that extends life, which was not an element of the.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because it's like, well, how does Am control all of matter?
He was also he was also responsible for the thing that morphs matter too.
Yes, morphs matter.
Yeah.
Which is like I bet Ellison was just like, I bet people want to know how that's done.
Sure.
He can attribute it to this Nazi scientist.
And this all also culminates in like his sort of redemption arc, that how each chapter is supposed to conclude.
So which we actually, unfortunately, because we didn't really have the rhythm of the game down yet, and we got into a bad ending essentially
for him,
which is like, I think for posterity we just moved on. But it was like eventually we kind of picked up the rhythm. It would be interesting to see what sort of ending we could have gotten.
But I guess the amplification though to make out of to get out of this with the best possible scenario was to help the other
prisoner.
the other Jewish captives escape, and then take control of the
golem.
Yeah.
Okay, that is another thing, is that this game has a lot of literary merit that it does not get credit for.
Yeah.
And I think probably the reputation overshadowed it, but there's a lot of very like hardcore literary and historical references in this game. But
yeah, especially in Ted's.
Yeah.
There's a lot of literary references.
For sure. That was I think my favorite chapter was Ted's chapter, just because of like how we'll get into it. You'll see.
Yeah, Ellen was mine.
Ellen was probably.
But I'll tell you my least favorite.
I think we all know the least favorite.
Yeah,
but before I get to that,
okay.
Don't worry. So, but for this chapter, David Mullock, the guy who helped translate the design document, he says he recalls waiting for a controversy that never came. He thought it was
just not enough people played it. I don't know.
I think probably, yeah. I think that's what it was.
I mean, they got away with altering, I guess, like a swastika for.
Oh yes. So the swastika turned into the stylized black and red AM.
Yeah.
That's what it was, which was like, I mean, I don't know if they did it to avoid censorship, but I feel like they did it to be more tongue in cheek, saying like that.
I think they did it for both. Reasons.
Yeah. So, but he said. Mullock, he says if they did something like this now, he said the right way to do it was they would actually spend much more time defining the character by building an affinity for him and then slowly revealing the horror of who he was. He thinks they
instead of the inverse of that, kind of.
Yeah, he thinks that they kind of blew their load by immediately being like, I mean, you start the chapter, you're about to fucking do an experiment on a child. It's like, that needs to come at the end, not the beginning,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I don't disagree.
Yeah, so.
There's also an element of just like, dude, have you read I Have No Mouth? Because, like, what'd you expect?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that leads us to our next chapter, which I think we all, we're not a fan.
No.
Benny.
It was because it was the most repetitive.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of inventory management here. It's a lot of running this loop and
yeah.
Kind of finding out the right sequence.
Yeah, it was very.
It is the most adventure game of them all.
Point and click.
It is.
Yeah. So, but so for Benny, he is in the story. He was a handsome scientist turned into an ape man. In the game, he is still an ape man.
Still very hunched over.
Very hunched over. Instead of being a former scientist, he was a distinguished but overbearing officer in the military.
He was also, I think, openly gay, which Ellison kind of regretted. Like, it wasn't any type of self-censorship. It was just like...
They lost the thread.
They lost the thread of it, but I think later
said that he wanted, that is... that was actually literally my next, right after the comma, actually. So his backstory sprang from him being the overbearing officer in the military. His homosexuality plays no part in the story. It doesn't not even mentioned in this story. Apparently, this was such an overlooked detail in the short story that when Mullock and Ellison went back to design the chapter, it was simply a lost thread. Like, they had forgotten that this was part of his character. It's not really brought up.
There wasn't any malicious in there of any kind. It was just that, like, it didn't play with what that chapter ended up being.
So, and actually,
but cannibalism did.
The cannibalism did. So, actually, funnily enough, the whole thing about homosexuality being a lost thread, David Sears does comment on that. I'll leave that for the for right after this. But so Benny's chapter, you transport you to a jungle setting inhabited by primitive cave-dwelling people who sacrifice one of their tribe members to Am apparently every other day, which is like, that's a lot of sacrifice. You can't replace the people like that quickly, okay? That's,
I think it was just so the player could get to the next day, but
I mean, that makes sense. In classic lottery fashion, shout out to Shirley Jackson, whose original short story has been plagiarized ad nauseum since 1948. That's when that story was written.
Oh, wow.
Right after. She was the one that came up with the
There's those Hunger Games residuals.
And it's like, that's an old concept, so, but
right.
Shout out to her. Am plagues Benny with agonizing hunger in order to tempt him into cannibalizing one of the cave people, as he did to his squad mates when he was in the military.
Okay.
And so, I mean, his redemption arc is so dumb because he goes from being just kind of an ass to being cave Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fixation on like food and stuff like sustenance, which is a pretty significant part of the they're all being starved.
Yeah.
So I guess they kind of wanted to work that in, but
it literally, as you play it, it's like you go to investigate these objects for puzzles, and it was like everything he sees is just either food or not food. So it's like that crib.
Kind of fucking annoying.
It is annoying. No, it's annoying. It
Yeah.
makes him just annoying as fucking hell. And he's bland as hell. It's like we went up to that crib and it's just like he's like, oh, it looks like there used to be a baby in here. Man, I'm really hungry. It's like, what? You want to fucking eat the baby, Benny? Is that what you're saying? It was just and like you said, it was that loop of just like,
and also like I think his movement is sort of like
his legs don't work.
His legs don't work. Yeah.
So there's a lot of areas you can't even access. Like it's pretty restrictive.
That's it. And it's like, so you, in the center of the town is a platform with a ladder going up to a bunch of stuff. And so I think in your mind, you're just like, oh, I got to find a way to get up the ladder because that's where the next area is. And you just never wind up going up. Yeah. So you need to,
he's redeemed through, I guess, the just, saving one of the victims.
A literal orphan. Okay, come on. It's just a little too on the nose.
The kid's mom is sacrificed, and then Benny has to take the kid's place when it's his turn.
When it's his turn, which is why I said it's like, and okay, not only that, but like the sacrificial mound is literally a like circuit board cross. It's very, very on the nose.
Heavy-handed.
So, but you're right. It's like, because,
but it's not even like he even demonstrates the care or compassion. It's like the play, like, I don't know. It just like, it doesn't even.
It's not a believable redemption for sure. And it's like it's like the time pressure thing where it's like you kind of need to advance the day by sleeping to get to like the lottery the next day, and it's like you think you've solved the puzzle correctly, and only to figure out that it's like, no, you didn't solve the puzzle correctly at all. So it's like, well, what do? You just got to reload. There's no way to, which is very, like you said, like very, very point and click adventure.
And also he's an ape man, so he can't talk to anybody.
Yeah, so you don't even get a lot of good internal or external dialogue from it. Like,
you're right, you don't. And though
Am does save the chapter.
He does.
Yes.
So all around this jungle inside these caves are monitors where Am kind of talks to the cave people like a la Big Brother.
Yeah.
And the dialogue for him in this chapter is just absolutely hilarious. He is such like he just has this glib, dry delivery.
It's because to him this is just like a stage play that he's orchestrating.
Yes.
Like it's just kind of.
So, and it's like, I remember you, Randy, like we were listening to his dialogue and you were just like, what a dick in the ass. Like, and it's so true. It's so funny. We laughed out loud at some of the stuff that Am said. Also, this is the chapter that you learn about the Russian and the Chinese supercomputers that they're kind of buried in Am's, I guess, subconscious. So he's kind of not aware that these people or these computers are there. But they are the ones who are like, we are the reason that you can like beat these psychodramas nobly because we are fucking with his designs and we're giving you the option to play it nobly. Otherwise, it would be, there wouldn't be an option to
earns
win.
its purpose, but it's by far like it also took us the longest, I think, to complete.
We needed a guide. No, this was actually the one chapter where we actually had to refer to the guide like to beat it.
Yeah.
We couldn't like we had to rely on it heavily. So. Funnily enough, actually, for the production notes, David Sears, the one who did the concept proposal, says that this was his least favorite storyline.
Okay.
So
he agrees with us.
He says, someone much later reminded him that Benny was the most altered of the characters and that he was gay, which prompted him to look back and realize there was a lot of lost opportunities writing this story. He says he remembers including that Benny was gay, even though he also has a wife in his version of the proposal. But that apparently when Mullock and Ellison went to translate his version of the story, it's nowhere to be found. Yeah. And so he's like, it was just dropped. And he's like, I regret that because a person confronting their closeted homosexuality would have been
a lot more impactful.
An amazing storyline in '95. Oh my God. Instead it's a lost opportunity. That chapter sucks.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
But then this is my favorite.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
you want to move on to Ellen.
Ellen. Yes. So Ellen, I will say, I think she is the best character.
Yeah.
I like Ted's chapter gameplay wise, but
Okay.
Ellen was a surprising,
Yeah.
just really.
I mean, off the bat, there's so much personality to her.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So notable,
Which maybe was just refreshing to us coming from
Yes.
Benny.
Yes. So
that
the
it's
first two
like-
chapters were
That she's very vocal and everything.
It was the first time we played the chapter that we played that I was like, oh, this is like a really like well developed, well thought out story, and the chapter was good too. But Ellen goes through a lot of changes from the story. Ellen in the story is well, first of all, she's the only woman of the group. She's also the only character whose skin color is mentioned.
Yeah.
So
in the original story as well.
in the original story, Ted says she has ebony skin, so she's black. So she was a black woman in a video game, and also in the story, her role in the story is that she is a once chaste woman now turned hypersexualized by Am.
Yes.
She's notable for the fact that, one, she has a lot of interaction with the other characters because she has sex with all of them kind of on rotation, but as Ted mentions, only enjoys it with Benny because, as I've said before, his gigantic dick. On top of that, the other characters kind of go between kind of worshiping and protecting her,
Ted
and then,
especially, yeah.
and then abusing her, which is like it's the Madonna horror complex sort of thing. So a lot of attention being paid to Ellen in the short story. Not all of it great attention. Probably not all of it would fly these days.
Yeah.
No.
But in the game, she's a survivor. She's a rape victim. She survives rape, and she was an engineer who we later find out worked on Am. Okay, and Am is sent her into this bright yellow e-waste pyramid.
Yeah,
he intends for
which it should be noted that she also is has a I guess it's a chromophobia. I had to look it up of like a fear of certain or getting a response of certain like colors.
Yes.
So like in her case, yellow.
Yes.
Should be noted that the yellow is symbolic. Is a symbolic color to represent anxiety.
Yes.
And post-traumatic stress.
Yes, absolutely. And so that is actually, yeah.
And she's also claustrophobic because the
rape happened in an elevator.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and so, I mean, this chapter, it's like, I can't say enough about this chapter. First of all, how different it turned out to be from the story, but also
it's incredibly bold and uncomfortable.
And also, how incredible Ellen was as a character, like how they wrote her for the game compared to the story. In the story, she's mostly a sex object, I think, in the story. In this, she's heroic in the
because
game.
Am makes her that though. Like you know, but in the game, it's like it all is leading to you confronting your rapist, and then
what a scene that turned out to be.
Yeah,
because Am intends for Ellen to relive her rape over and over, but instead she confronts the rapist and conquers him, and it's spectacular. And they did a wonderful job. Also, I genuinely just enjoyed solving the puzzle to this. I felt like
in that like Egyptian temple.
In the Egyptian temple thing. Ellen, like you said, has a great personality. She's very well written. She has a very vibrant personality. Yeah. She's funny. She's funny to listen to, talk to. Yeah. She's a likable character.
And she's very like technically competent in that
she's an engineer.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
That is really, I mean, I respect that level of writing. It's like, it was probably one of the first video games where you would play as a black woman who was a survivor of rape, and she was an engineer and a talented engineer. This is like she's a groundbreaking character for 95.
Absolutely.
I thought it was incredible. And on top of that, I think there are a lot of very satisfying revelations in her chapter regarding more of Am's backstory. You talk to his one of his
the failsafe.
It was, I think it was a component. It was his innocence. So it was like, it was shut down, but really he was kind of stored in like the.
But it's showing you a weakness in his
Yes. Yeah. And so that's cool. And also you find out that Ellen helped program parts of Am, which is.
In addition to that, it is, I think, one of the best chapters in terms of like aha moments, which is always good for one of these point and clicks where it's
That's very true.
oh, here's a computer. Oh, there's a disk tray that's open. Oh, gotta find a disk. Then later you find a disk and you're like, aha.
It's almost like a Resident Evil. Like,
Oh, here's a robot and he won't let me past this certain point. And then it's like you find a mug and then you have to put water in the mug and throw the water on the robot and short circuit him and then take like a servo out of him and put it in another computer. And it's like all these
it's telegraphed well.
Yes.
As opposed to like Benny's. Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
As opposed to Benny's where it's just like, hey, get a piece of fruit. All right, feed it to this person. Now get a piece of fruit. Feed it to that person. Get a piece of fruit. Feed it to this person. All right, now the fourth piece of fruit, they're going to chew and spit into your mouth because you're too weak to chew.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Wow, okay, this guy, all he thinks about is food. Now I have food. No, you're not supposed to eat it. What you need to do is get this woman to pre-masticate it back into your mouth, and it's like, oh, God, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, so, yeah.
We did think of that. It didn't work. That's when we had to insult the guy because we were doing it right, but we were doing it in the wrong order.
Yeah, you need to give it to the child first, then the mother.
Mm-hmm.
Hint, hint, have you ever played this game? Look up Benny's chapter in a guide. So I think this was definitely the part of the game where I really got engaged with the storyline. I was like, I really want to see where this goes now because I was very impressed with this chapter. I loved Ellen's character. She's my favorite character by far.
No,
for
I
sure.
agree.
And so David Sears confirmed that a black woman in a video game suffering the psychic fallout of being raped was intended to like kind of evoke kind of a groundbreaking feeling. I think our Harlan Ellison knew that it was like, this has not been done in games before. And I mean, hasn't been done much since either.
No, it's a touchy, rightfully so, touchy subject.
This, get ready for this story.
Especially to approach this level of thoughtfulness. But,
yeah, but wait, get ready for this story. Holy shit. This is like a punch to the gut. Sears wrote the dialogue for the rape scene across several late nights while his infant son was undergoing chemotherapy. To quote him, "One time we shared a room with a teenage girl whose chances weren't good, and she knew it. One night she woke up terrified and had to speak to a nurse before she would calm down. I channeled that memory whilst trying to imagine the terror Ellen would have gone through in confronting her rapist." Jesus fucking Christ. What the fuck? Oh my God. Like, you start out with his infant son is undergoing chemotherapy, and then you find out about this poor teenage girl, and it's like, oh my God. Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah.
I read that story, and I was like, wow, that is a good punch. So, but then, so now we're 2 chapters away. We saved Ted for last since he was kind of the main character.
Yeah, what's our boy Gorrister up to?
Gorrister. So I like Gorrister's chapter a lot too. Actually.
I like the where it takes place. It's the most like visually interesting.
Yes, that is, yeah. So
you're on like a fucking Zeppelin over the.
It was a very
desert.
entertaining chapter. So in the story, there's not much said about Gorrister except that he was a social activist, turned apathetic and listless. In the game, he has his backstory has been entirely rewritten.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot more realized.
It's a lot more realized. So in the game, he suffers extreme feelings of guilt over putting his wife in a mental institution, locking her away. He feels very bad about it. So in the game, you awaken in a cot aboard a large unmanned airship, or a dirigible, as some might call it.
A what?
A dirigible?
You made that up.
Dirigible?
Dirigible? Is that it?
That's
a Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Am is apparently transporting Gorrister to a honky-tonk truck stop where he will be confronted by the phantom of his late wife, whom he committed to an institution, and even worse, his in-laws, who make an appearance. So, yeah, very David Lynchian, like dreamscape horror sort of feel. Just very, very surreal sort of setting. I would say so, and also I like the flow of his chapter.
Yeah,
it was good.
A lot of good puzzles in this one.
A lot of
too.
good puzzles.
Yeah,
very much so. Actually, David Sears or one of the David Mullock said this was his favorite chapter, specifically because he loved
the ending. Is pretty like
oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. So, I mean, the ending of the chapter is you cut your wife's heart out. Trade it to a spirit jackal in exchange for your own heart, hogtie your mother-in-law, and then hook her up to the ship's power supply, and then blow up.
Yeah, like an action in just spectacular fashion.
Yeah. And then as you're flying off, blow up the truck stop with a bazooka pistol.
Yes.
It's like what's not to like about
It's
this
by far
chapter?
the most action-packed like this. Yeah.
Oh, it's and Gorrister. I knew nothing about Gorrister going into this game, but he was a likable character.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of very good dialogue, a lot of very funny. It's very fun. This chapter is very funny.
This one is
It's got a lot of humor to it.
It's got varied environments. It's got good puzzles.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's got good dialogue.
And he's also like, despite being kind of, riddled with like kind of suicidal thoughts, like he's still like kind of
Yeah, but he's got
on top of like,
he's got
like
it together. He's
yeah.
keeping it together, which is good. I think this one, the story was very heavy on metaphor. I mean, it's all about hearts and guilt and like,
yes.
it's, it's almost entirely metaphorical.
It's very literalized.
It's very
in parts,
literalized. And so I love
but this one is enjoyable. Man, we really had a good cadence to how the order.
We did.
Like, I'd almost recommend, if anyone
Yeah.
listening, that this should be the order you play them
Yeah.
in.
And so, let's see. There is your father-in-law shows up at the truck stop, and unless you keep feeding him whiskey, he just keeps repeating the same dialogue. So you got to kind of keep him drunk, which I thought was funny. Oh, if you turn on the jukebox, one of the songs is just your mother-in-law yelling at you.
Yeah.
You lose sanity.
That's right.
You learn the solution to one of the puzzles by reading the graffiti on the bathroom wall. It's just, this chapter is a treasure, I
Yeah.
feel like. But yeah. So
I
think
like Gorsters a lot.
Yeah.
so. David Mullick says that this was his favorite storyline. He found it the most metaphorical and dreamlike. Heavy emphasis on dreamlike.
Yeah,
feels
well, it's the most
very-
fantastical. Like,
Yeah.
like.
He also found the talking jackal very memorable, but he cannot remember if it was him or Harlan Ellison who came up with that idea,
Okay.
but he remembers it very much. Which just brings us to the final chapter, which is Ted. So we played his last. He in the story, he is delusional and paranoid and delusional. This has been expanded in the game.
I mean, he's more like of a character in this than in the.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Well, that's why I think I said it. I don't remember in the last episode of this one that he serves as an audience surrogate for the short story, but in this one he's
a character.
He's a
It
character,
almost feels
yeah.
like it's like he doesn't even have the distinction of being like a narrator like character. He's
exactly.
just another
he's
character.
on equal footing with everyone else because he
Yes.
does kind of rise to become a bit of a hero and
Yes. Yeah.
well, not a bit.
Well, yeah.
He actually is.
He actually, yeah. He does.
As opposed to this where he, like you said, he's a con man.
He's a con man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
He's a schmeezer.
he's basically his storyline. He's a yuppie con man who in life he seduced and robbed rich women of their money. His paranoia of being discovered as a fraud is intensified to him being just kind of delusionally paranoid.
Right, yeah.
And so in Ted's chapter, you're placed before a haunted castle, pulled straight from a fairy tale. Am seeks to tempt Ted into betraying his fellow captives with the promise of escape to the service world, and by dangling that sweet ass in front of him, saying like, it's just like, yeah, you want to get laid? Here you go.
Which
Have
is funny
fun.
because none of the other of the five are in each other's like sections, but Ellen is here like
There is
distinctively, which
so much that
kinda stands
distinguishes
out.
this chapter. So much. So, first of all, it's a very intricate storyline compared to the others. There's a lot of side characters. They're
yeah, I'm
all
actually
in-
almost surprised the game doesn't make you do this last. Like
It feels like a fight, including
Yeah.
chapter, and it's the only chapter where Ellen shows up, or any of the other characters show up in any of the psychodramas at all. Ted, I don't know if this is supposed to be like his secret thoughts, but it's like apparently he's in love with Ellen secretly. I mean,
Yeah.
who knows how genuine those feelings actually are? Like, because it's Ted.
considering.
Yeah, but Ted essentially he needs to navigate a bunch of kind of Faustian bargains, which all these sinister characters, and he needs to reveal the overpowering temptation to fuck every woman through the floorboards in this chapter
Oh,
because
yeah, the maid,
the maid. Okay, I'll just put it this way: fucking someone is the solution to more than one puzzle, which is just
As is
delight-
life.
But yeah, there's a lot of really great side characters in this too.
Yeah.
The devil I thought was good. I thought
Oh right, yeah.
I thought Surgat, the demon, was really funny. I thought the witch was funny. The maid was funny. I thought
Which they're just kind of manifestations of like
they're archetypes,
Yeah.
yes. And so the whole point of this chapter was that fairy tales are very moralizing, and so that played well.
Good point.
The theme was essentially, can you avoid temptation to free Ellen's soul? Essentially,
they found a way to make that like Castlevania aesthetic like fit. Like,
yeah. Which is why I really liked this chapter. Ted is a knob. I'll just say Ted's a knob.
A bit of
Ted
a knob.
sucks.
Yeah.
Ted sucks. He's got the scarf, he's got the turtleneck, he's got the coif. He's just a shit eating knob.
He's kind of aggressively annoying, but he's sort of meant to be.
He's meant to be. I think he was a character that was enjoyable to hate. I feel like he wasn't like annoying to the point where you're like you despise.
No, that you don't want to play. It was just kind of like because we were just sort of like scoffing and rolling our eyes, but we're just like, but we're in it. Like
we're in it. No, and I really liked. I think this is the chapter where I think you were just like there was a one of the books we had read, and you were just like, wait a second, you made a connection to one of the books. And then we went back to the books and looked at it, and the clue dropped out at us. I thought we did this perfectly. We actually did this chapter perfectly.
Dante's Inferno, right?
That was it. Yeah,
right.
Because
I think so.
There was also another clue in Don Quixote.
I don't think we've mentioned it before, but each character's sort of like sanity state is visually represented.
Yes.
In the corner of the screen, and there is a flash from maybe, is it like red to yellow to green to white was the one that we knew?
It's a gradient from nothing to like a yellowish green to like a very
bright,
like a dark green to a yellowish green to a very bright green.
Okay.
And then when they're at full sanity and you've done everything right, it's white.
That's what gave us the confirmation that
and so
we did this
we
as
discovered
well as
that.
we did.
I think I was saying Ellen's chapter. We realized is when like maybe as late as Gorrister's we realized this is like
we got the white background in Ellen's chapter.
I think 3 out of 5.
I think Ellen
and then
Ted.
we realized it in Gorrister's chapter.
Yeah,
what it meant.
Yeah.
Because Gorrister was the one that we realized when you play the one song on the jukebox, you lose. It goes darker.
It goes darker, which
so
made us realize.
And then we got White and Ted's. Yeah, we fucked up Benny's and Nimdok's.
Nimdok's, yeah. Nimdok's was kind of a shame because I feel like we had the potential to do really well.
We did. I think we knew what our mistake was.
Benny, I mean, just fuck Benny. Like, I wouldn't replay the chapter anyway.
Nah.
So.
No. Did we get? I think we kind of got White and Benny's.
I don't know.
I mean, we got a good ending, but it doesn't mean not all of the. If you missed something to do in the chapter, doesn't mean you got a. Just because we got the good ending doesn't mean that it was like perfect. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But so we finished up that chapter,
which took us to our epilogue.
Yeah. So, but before I get to that, the only thing actually, so funnily enough, I actually was curious enough. I was like, this seems like a chapter that was like really elaborate and well worked on, and like there's a lot of thought and like it was orchestrated well. Funnily enough, neither Ellison nor Sears nor Mullock can remember anything about how this chapter developed.
Really?
Yeah, no. So Ellison claims that he and Sears had written a very different story than what Mullock brought to him, or like what it turned out to be. When questioned about this, Harlan was unable to remember what the original storyline even was going to be. And then Mullock also says, I don't remember any details about writing the expanded story either. So apparently no one knows where this story came from, who wrote it. It was very well written, I thought. I really enjoyed it. But I guess it's just lost to time at this point. Yeah. I mean, that's just it. So, but yeah, the finale. What were your thoughts on what were you going to say about the finale?
Oh, well, I was going to, so you can, give me a correction if I'm wrong here, but the game does give you the option of who you want to play for the epilogue.
Yes.
And I don't know if that directly is like, will determine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure you'll get into it, but what we did is we got one of the many
bad endings,
which is kind of the classic of getting turned into the. But then we did watch.
Which I think if you're playing this game, you should just take the ending you get and just, just run with it. But so after all of the chapters are complete, okay, you have the kind of grand finale, and Am, who's frustrated that you kind of beat his schemes, kind of like goes away for a bit, and the Russian and the Chinese supercomputers reveal themselves again and say like, He's distracted. Okay, he's weak. It is time. Now's your chance to strike. And so you have this final chapter. You play with all 5 of the characters, and you can choose them in any order that you wish. But the thing is, the puzzles are hard, and if you choose the wrong character at the wrong time and do the wrong thing with them, it's impossible to get the good ending. There are 7 endings to the game.
Yes.
6 of them are bad. So in order to get the good ending...
And even the good ending is just the least shitty. It's the first.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's not even like a fantastic ending. It's the best you can do.
Yeah.
So Am's memory, so this takes place on it's a sprawling surface of a brain with a bunch of glass shards jutting out of it, which is very, I think, very appropriate for Am's brain, just a brain with glass in it. This ending is completely original. There's nothing about this in Ashorius came up with it.
No.
In order to earn the good ending, you must not only choose the correct order of the characters to play, but complete the right task as each of them and make no wrong choices. And then if you don't, you get one of the 6 bad endings. The bad endings are bad.
They almost all lead to the great soft jelly thing.
Great soft jelly ending. And this was the ending that we got, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
The Hot Button crew was not was not good enough to accidentally stumble upon the best ending of I Have No Mouth.
Well, of course, because
We
the
were doomed
video
to scream
we played
internally.
we played the epilogue for like 3 minutes and then got turned to jelly. And then we looked up a video of how to do it, and it's like 40 minutes long.
I mean,
Yeah.
and
It's
if
like,
that's
because you have to like pick people in a certain order, right?
Yes.
Like you have to.
you need to use the right items. The
Yeah.
reason we lost is because we gave the demon shows back up and it was like, give me the totem of decay or something, and you give it to him thinking like this guy's gonna help me, and he's like, yeah, I used it to kill the Russian and Chinese supercomputers. Am still alive. Okay, bye. And then it's like, wait, what? And then you find out that was like you shouldn't have given him that thing. It's like there's no
Yeah.
indication that
Yeah.
that should have done that. But several of the bad endings will earn you the now probably internet famous image of the Great Soft Jelly, which is from the story. It is
Foggy eyes.
the foggy eyes. The first time I saw this, actually, probably a couple of years ago, it is disturbing.
No, it's
It's unsettling.
Yeah.
Because I watched it and it comes up and you're like, it's startling. I had seen it before, so I knew what to expect, but it's genuinely
Yeah.
gross and
You're
so
basically a human slug.
you're a human slug with
Like a
white
husk.
translucent eyes. Okay,
Yeah.
and this is from the ending of the story itself, and I'll read the passage. Smoothly rounded, with no mouth, with pulsing white holes filled by fog where my eyes used to be, rubbery appendages that were once my arms, bulks rounding down to legless humps of soft, slippery matter. I leave a moist trail when I move. Blotches of diseased, evil gray come and go on my surface, as though the light is being beamed from within. Outwardly, dumbly, I shamble about, a thing that could never have been known as a human, a thing whose shape is so alien a travesty that humanity becomes more obscene for the vague resemblance. Which is just like, yeah.
Ugh.
So
I know
that
he
is,
like sees himself in the reflection, but it was just forever to not.
yeah, he's
do
legit.
anything.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's, and this is eternity, by the way. He spends
he's
eternity
doomed
as
it
this
for all- yeah.
character, yeah. So that's just like, I mean, that's just gruesome. And
Yeah.
that's the ending we got. We, like Randy said, we just kind of were like, all right, this is the ending we got, and we just watched the rest of the endings. The ending, to get the best ending, is like, you need a guide. You can't just
Yeah.
sit there and do it through trial and error. So we kind of played the game like someone from 1995 would have played it.
I think that was the
as.
right way.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it would have broken our immersion a little if we were just,
So,
like.
I mean, in the end, it was a very well written game.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was really
No,
good.
I don't let I accept the ending we got.
I think we got the ending Harlan would have wanted.
It
most.
felt like that was the experience
that he wanted people to live out.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
if anything, the quote unquote good ending is kind of like this weird bonus Easter egg. Like,
Yeah,
It's-
that's.
Yeah.
I feel like it is like kind of a. It's more like rather than a good ending, it feels like the hidden ending.
Yes,
Like if
yeah.
you worked hard enough and solved the puzzles, like you spent that much time figuring out the right order to do the characters in. Imagine how much saving and loading you must have
But
to
it's
do.
not as if like we felt like cheated, you know?
No,
Like,
no.
it's-
I thought it was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So with the exception of a couple bad accents, I remember in Nimdok's chapter, the voice acting was superb, which is very important for a game like this.
Ellen and Am, especially.
Very well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, outstanding work to Harlan for providing that Am. Very well done. So I think, and again, Randy, you mentioned this, it's like the tone, I expected more outright horror. I expected more gruesome deaths, actually. I expected to die gruesomely, but the tone in many of the parts felt darkly comical, almost.
Yeah,
Very-
well, this isn't Phantasmagoria, you know, or
Yes,
Harvester. Like, this is, like, those are smut. This is art.
Yes,
like,
this
you
is
know,
art,
like,
yeah.
It does a good job of portraying how much Am is enjoying torturing you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. And there is a lot of comedy, as fucked up as what's happening around it is, there's a lot of comedy to be had in that.
Yes.
Very dark humor, like,
yeah.
of just him basically, like, whenever he pops up in any of those sections, he's just laughing at you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, like, if you get one of the bad endings to one of the characters' chapters where you have to restart, he's like, "Oh, poor Benny, I thought better of you." Like,
Yeah.
he's, like, talking down to you and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no giant hurricane bird. But
Damn.
That's-
Yo, that's a good callback to the plot of the story. Yeah. Well done.
but I think it
Yeah.
had, it's
No giant dick. Benny didn't get to use his giant penis.
no.
But actually, so I would say too, very playable, very replayable.
Yes,
This day and
yeah.
age.
And-
It's not so. In fact, actually, if anything, it went very, very smoothly.
I honestly had an easier time with this than I think I mentioned them earlier, but some of the LucasArts stuff that
Oh yeah.
that I know people look back extremely fondly and
Grim
I,
Fandango.
I
man.
had an
Okay.
easy time. I had an easier time with this than Broken Age, which was designed
Yeah.
in, like,
in 2012 or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the game had a little literary merit that just gets overlooked. Everybody
Yeah.
remembers the grim reputation, but it's like there's a kind of a hint book in your inventory. That's
Yeah.
the hint is historical and cultural reference that is a riddle to where you need to go next. And
Yeah.
it's like it's got like a that's like it's well done.
It's
I
like
mean,
Bible verses and definitions.
yeah,
and, like, yeah.
And some of the more horrific things we described, a lot of it is more left up to your personal filling in the blanks of like,
so
your
so
interpretation of it.
definitely if you were thinking about playing it, it's worth
we
worth
recommend
playing
it.
Once again,
It's like $5 or something on GOG Steam.
once again, very similarly to
crazy.
Night Trap.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
went in expecting nothing and was very pleasantly surprised.
for sure.
I mean, I expected more out of this game than Night Trap, but still,
Mhm.
I was very pleasantly surprised, just
Yeah.
like I was with Night Trap.
Agreed. So reviews.
Reviews.
Yeah, no, everyone loved it. Unconditionally.
absolutely. Well, I mean, the industry
pro-
loved it.
Yes.
And
It's like
critics loved it.
This was like a comedian's comedian, you know?
Yeah,
Where the
yeah.
laughs come from the back of the room kind of
Yes,
situation.
Absolutely. It was so.
Catered to a very specific type of demographic.
It is, yes. And so, I mean, so it was praised by the industry because they recognized
deservedly
not
so.
only that the amount of love that was put into this game, but also many of them said it's like you tackled very taboo topics in gaming, and it was bold. So it did review very well. The sales were quite middling, not atrocious, but not what you would expect from
what
a big name.
The reach of this was what like what deals with retailers they had for this to get out there.
That's actually, you know what?
Because I know it was never submitted to be rated. Like it's like
That's true.
how many copies could there have been? Like,
well, that was and so that was part of the reason that I think it probably sold so poorly.
sure.
It was so in terms of reviews, critics had praised it. Actually, GDC 1997, it won the Game Developers Choice Awards for Best Adaptation of Linear Media.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. And it was up against the likes of Alien, actually, was in there as well. So it beat.
Wait, which Alien game?
Oh, God.
Was it
That's
like the
genuine-
Jaguar AVP game? Was that 95?
Probably, yeah.
I think it might have been.
So, and then I forget what else was in there. Jurassic Park might have been one of them.
Mm.
But it won, and because rightfully so.
No,
It
yeah,
was,
good
it
for
was,
them.
It was very well done. Computer Gaming World named it their Adventure Game of the Year that year. They really loved it. And somewhat ironically, it made their number 14 spot in their top 15 most rewarding endings of all time, which is like, I bet Harlan hated that. I bet he was pissed off.
Stewing in
Oh, God. He wanted to make the endings.
rewarding ending.
Yeah. No, he deliberately wanted to make the endings as least satisfying as possible. You put him on that list, it's like you might as well just kick him right in the balls.
Yeah.
But
It's like a Star Trek script once.
yeah. So, but it had middling sales. It didn't sell obviously that well. One of the problems, as you can imagine, was censorship. Okay, so not in the States, but
Well, I'm gonna say Germany.
oh, how'd you guess? What made you think that? Was it all the concentration camp? Yeah, no. I bet they really hated Benny. They didn't like Benny's chapter. No.
Yeah.
So in Germany, it was censored so much that they just completely removed Nimdok's chapter entirely,
Oh,
which made the perfect ending.
oh, impossible.
Well, all but impossible.
Right? Like, what?
So it turns out that you could technically do it through sheer
See, that-
trial and error. You had
Oh.
to guess the password that you need from his chapter.
So maybe that's the edition that Ellison liked the most.
Maybe. Also, I really love this part. The citation used by Wikipedia for the fact that you can still guess the password, but, it was impossible.
Right.
The citation is a 2014 Good Old Games forum post by German user InfraSuperman. They read his post, and this guy lives in Germany saying, like, yeah, it's technically possible, but you need to guess the password. And that was their citation for it, which is like, listen, God bless you, InfraSuperman. Thank you for contributing to the sum of all human knowledge with that forum post. Also, as Randy, as you also mentioned, is a very limited market.
Yeah.
Okay, so by the mid-90s, Cyberdreams...
How do you advertise?
Yeah, exactly. Cyberdreams had developed this reputation for being a very adult-oriented publisher, and this story was, already notoriously disturbing, okay, and it was being marketed towards adults, so it's just like, you guys have been doing this podcast long enough to, it's like, yo, man, you might as well pull out gun, shoot foot. Like, it's just not it's such a limited audience, really. And so it didn't sell very well for that reason. But I think most thematically, I suppose, is just the marketing for the game, okay?
Yeah.
Mullock says that he convinced Ellison to add at least one good ending to the game, okay, which we know is true, okay, but as recently as a 2013 interview with Game Informer, okay, Harlan Ellison continued to insist that he designed the game to be unwinnable, in spite of the obvious evidence that, we know that it wasn't, and the exact quote, "I created it so you could not win it. The only way in which you could win was to play it nobly. The more nobly you played it, the closer to succeeding you would come, but you could not actually beat it, and that annoyed the hell out of people." I think, Randy, you already mentioned this as well, and in many ways, he was kind of right. The game's ending is impenetrable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
It's funny because like him saying like the noble path is the one to victory. Like, did he have kind of a perception that gamers wouldn't take those options if given the choice? But that's not.
That is a genuinely good question, actually. I think he
not that they're upfront about, like.
No, I think he designed the game. I think he wanted the gamers to play it nobly as possible, because it's hard to play the game. It's hard to get far in the game if you don't play it nobly. But I think that he wanted. What happened was he made this game as art, not a product to sell, So it was just like, he kind of got his wish. I think he would be pleased by the fact that the game didn't sell that well and a lot of people didn't really.
Sure. No,
But,
he's not driven by money or success. Like, it's.
Yeah. And think about this too. He
doesn't want anything to come at the expense of
his artwork. Yeah. So, he got his wish, I think. I think he probably got the product that he wanted.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, in this era of the then nascent internet, you like coming across a guide to this game would have been tough. Coming across another soul who bought this fucking game and then managed to stumble through its Rubik's Cube of an endgame.
There's probably some good, like, now defunct forums out there from the mid-90s of, like...
I was just thinking of Usenet.
Folks, like, figuring this shit out.
I was like, imagine digging up these Usenet posts about, like, yo, did anybody buy this Harlan Ellison game? How the fuck do you beat this? It is. That's, like, the type of thing where it's, like, you figure out the solution by, like, going on forums and chat rooms and stuff.
I mean, it's like a Fez or PT, you know, like, so many years later. Like,
but bottom line, you know, I think Harlan got what he wanted. It didn't sell very well. At least it didn't bomb, I would say, which is, you know, better than, you know, it having middling sales.
I mean, enough for Cyberdreams, I guess, to develop two more
games and survive for 2 more years.
Oh,
and that brings us
97. Okay.
That brings us to the next part of our story, because as you shall see, I Have No Mouth was basically their magnum opus.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then they developed Croc 2 or something.
Yeah. I love the examples that your brain comes up with. Like, it's just like, you think, like, what's a mediocre game from the 90s? Croc 2. It's like, well, I guess you're right. It was very mediocre. Yeah.
No, don't reward him.
Sold the
So, as you mentioned, 2 more games. So one was Darkseid 2, the sequel.
Okay.
It got a sequel. I think it, you know, it probably, they work with Geiger again. I think it did pretty well. Then Dark Noir, which they worked with a guy, Jeff Blythe, who I've never heard of. And he was some director. There was some Disney attachment to his name, but he was not. And that was it. Then they closed their doors in 1997. 2 years. 2 years after I Have No Mouth.
That's
and
a
2
shame.
years later. Okay. And this was largely due to the fact that they never finished any of the games they started making. Truly.
I wonder what holdings group picked that up. I mean, like, for this to get a GOG release or Steam releases.
You're asking all the right questions, my friend, and I've got your answers. So, the thing you need to, from the very start, Cyberdreams, they kept announcing games, and then they got very far into development, and then just never eventually published them or released them. Okay, and this happened multiple times. 7 years, 9 announced games that just languored in development.
Man, how many people were on staff there?
Well, I think that was the problem. They had a very small staff. Rather than over time building the in-house talent, I think it stayed kind of a small company. And so all these ambitious projects got started and never finished. Their first game wasn't even Darkseid. It was a game called Enforcer that they announced, and then it got through some sort of thing, through some way through development, and then they never finished it. And then Darkseid came after, and that was officially their first release game. In 1992, they announced a Gary Gygax collaborated RPG called Hunters of Raw. Gary Gygax is the biggest name in role-playing, okay? And you can look on, there's this site that has all the concept art and all these design ideas.
Oh man. It's like or Unseen 64 or one of those.
Oh yeah, for sure. This is like one of those games you start to look up and you're like, this is like a fascinating background. But it was supposed to be the first episode in a series of games where he was going to be leading this RPG series. And it's like, Gygax is a big name. From 92 straight to the company closing its doors, it just languored in development. And in 1999, it got released as Legendary Adventure, Legendary with a J. But like, that is kind of just an idea of the opportunities that they let slip through their fingers, essentially.
Dang, man.
So, another big thing
they had some connections.
They did. That's the mind-blowing part. And so, the other big thing was in 1995, it was obvious Cyberdreams did not have the manpower to develop these own games, but they were very good at connecting these celebrity artists with the developers and game designers that they could work with.
But also the tech was increasingly evolving too. Like point and clicks were by 97 like kind of falling out of fashion.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they did try to experiment,
or at least
with
PC adventure games in general. Like
They did try to experiment with other types of games
like direct
that
character control or something.
there was one. Yeah, there was one first-person fantasy game.
That's
I have it written down here somewhere. That okay.
Elder Scrolls 1.
It kind of looks like Elder Scrolls 2, actually.
Oh,
is
2.
what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, but in '95, it was kind of obvious that they were best at doing the third-party publishing, and who knows how to steer a company better than investors? Oh boy, they forced a management shakeup and placed their own. Hold on, I have it. The wording is just delightful. Okay. They placed their own, where is it? Turnaround management team in charge of the company. The founder, Patrick Ketchum, I don't know if they kicked him out, but he was out the door a year later.
Yeah.
And that is like, dude, if your company's 5 years old and your founder leaves, it's like, you might as well pack it in, man. That vision's just gone. And so for the next 2 years, they kind of tried to mimic the company's ambition with varying degrees of failure.
Yeah.
The last real big name they would ever get, Wes Craven, Principles of Fear, came in '97.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. And this was right when Scream was around the corner in '97.
Fucking A.
Yeah, so
96.
Yeah. 96. So
Yeah.
it was like that was a big name. The other 9 games had talented artists attached to them, but they weren't celebrities. No one had heard of them. So it's like, I feel like what happened was,
Little did they know there'd be like a demand for this type of game again.
oh yeah, it's crazy.
Because now
And
you're
so-
seeing a real return to form for
that type of content.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, Wes Craven's Principles of Fear was a day late and a dollar short. The company closed its doors in '97.
That's unfortunate.
This would I Have No Mouth would kind of go on to be like their last big hit. So the real big failure was the fact that they needed to build out their in-house talent. They didn't. They kept contracting the work out. A lot of these opportunities just slipped through their fingers. I also want to point out a lot of these games that they were developing, one of them was in an alpha stage and was leaked. Another had a downloadable beta. Okay. The Gygax game was advertised in a magazine. These were games that were far in development.
Right,
These are not just
yeah.
concepts, but like they were in some completed state, and just like
and
they
just
never
had to,
published
They just
them.
had to kill it. Like
There were 2 games, Ares Rising and Blue Heat, which I've never heard of. They actually managed to see the light of day because after the bankruptcy, they were sold to other publishers who just published them. They just it's like they were like close to being published, and some other publisher was like, fine, we'll buy it and just put it out. Yeah.
Huh.
So, but
I
yeah,
had no idea. Like
yeah.
Huh.
So
It's very reminiscent of Telltale.
I almost brought that
Oh,
up earlier.
That
It was
is-
just like the working with properties and kind of like ballooning to more than what you're capable of. Like
that is such an apt
yeah.
exact metaphor. Yeah.
Well, the only
yeah.
difference is that Telltale kind of ballooned too big. They kept growing their staff.
Yeah,
To the
they,
point
they,
where-
they relocated their offices to
To the point where every game was like make or break, and then they broke.
they broke.
Yeah.
Right.
Really
No
was
Stranger Things partnership was gonna save them.
Yeah, and Cyberdreams was probably
On
pretty
Netflix.
much the opposite. They failed to balloon, and then
Yeah.
therefore there was literally just no one to fucking finish these
I know,
half-finished
there's just
games.
so much on the table though. Like
It was so much on the table.
That's-
It was, and it's like,
sucks.
yeah, they were gonna make one of the games was an adaptation of the 1995 movie Species, which Geiger also apparently worked on.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've seen Species.
Yeah. So, but like. But like the Gygax collaboration, like that could have that was such
That
a
it
missed opportunity.
potentially could have
Yeah.
turned everything around. Yeah,
So-
for all we know.
Yeah, so I mean, Mike Dawson, who I've mentioned several times before, the game producer, who, apparently had a mental breakdown, but in a postmortem, he did say it was an inventive strategy that they pursued. It was a shrewd move by which not only the art of the artist was used, but their celebrity was leveraged. And that was like a thing. And that vision of like using celebrities, I think once the founder left, I think the new management team really did a pale imitation of that, because they brought in there was a mystery novelist to write a book, but he wasn't famous. I had never heard of him. So it's like, you can't just bring in talented artists. These people need to be world famous.
Yeah.
That's what makes these games
And also,
distinct.
when you say celebrity, like they're not using their name, like they're not like it is totally like
no.
a collaboration. Like,
That is that's what he meant was that
be a
it's
part
like,
of every step of this process. And,
yeah, and that's why he said it was a shrewd move. It gave the artist the chance to like show off this work. In which case, it's like you aren't just using their name; you're using the art that they made. It's something that they
were
made.
very thoughtful in it, and like
so. I speculate that maybe some of the reason these games were left unpublished is maybe there was a bit of a perfectionist streak in this company where they were like, this doesn't meet, because the other games, as you can see, were very lovingly crafted.
right. There was a standard.
There was a standard there that was too high. I think once Patrick left, he just left for, he went for a career in photography. I think he just kind of got bored. I think he kind of was just like, I had my fun. I hung out with Geiger. I hung out with Sid Mead. I got to chill with Ellison. I think he was kind of just like
shit under his belt. But I know what you mean. Like they weren't going to publish anything unless they like believed in it.
Believed in it fully. So, but in the end, Cyberdream's catalog was quite small, 5 games, but it constituted some very high quality games, especially their first 3.
Yeah.
Well, I think probably Darkseed probably is probably an interesting artifact.
We'll
of
have to
gaming.
take a look at that sometime
That would
if
be
we
fun
can,
to play.
yeah.
But so Cyberdreams dissolved in 1997, and so did the Dreamers Guild. That was the developers who did it.
Oh.
Dreamers Guild, I think, just went straight bankrupt. I don't think they. I think they published a lot, like probably like a dozen or more games beside or developed, and I think the sales just weren't there. It wasn't really not really a bad company strategy. Just they.
Well, that's
they didn't make
the
money.
shift was also moving away.
Moving away, as you mentioned. So, but with the publisher and the
online
developers both disappearing in the exact same year, actually, the game became bona fide abandonware. So I don't know how this works, but because they both dissolved, neither company owned the rights to the game. And so the game went out of print for close to 15 years. That was until the 2010s. And our favorite late night Discord subject finally arrived in the gaming market, which is digital downloads. And so obviously, I mean, I'm not going to get into that subject, but one of the effects of obviously digital downloading is that games didn't have a life cycle anymore. They didn't have to die by going out of print. And then around 2010, Good Old Games launched, and that meant that games already out of print no longer had to stay dead.
Yeah.
Okay. And so finally, it really was, we saw in 2010s, there was a huge tidal wave of old out of print media that got re-released to,
on modern systems.
On modern systems. Yeah. And Good Old Games obviously does a phenomenal job. They add in the fan patches. So in the end, it was only a matter of time before I Have No Mouth was ready to make its really just spectacular return.
Like a resurface of people that never got to
try it out. And so
experience it.
The company that got to herald its resurrection was none other than Night Dive Studios, who I don't know if you guys remember what they
I know Night Dive.
Yeah.
very famous for. Well, they're a company that specifically buys old abandonware.
Yeah, no, this is kind of what they do. They most recently with Turok 1 and 2.
Turok, yes. And so famously launched with the resurrection of System Shock 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're in charge of the 3 or remake or what's going on there, but
no idea. But Night Dive is a big name, and they're big fans. They clearly love doing this, and it wasn't
doing the
long.
Lord's work with this art preservation aspect of
They are for sure, and not only that, but it wasn't long after their founding. So the company was founded in 2013. By September 2013, I Have No Mouth was in their scope. Oh yeah. This was not like it took long for them to get it. I think this was very early on their priority list. They knew. And so September 2013, Good Old saw release on Good Old Games. Steam release not long after, same year. And since then, it has snowballed into a very hardcore following of enthusiasts and fans, for sure. And funnily enough, when it once had difficulty with its disturbing content and shocking material, it's found new life among an audience that is not only desensitized to its shock, but now actively seeks that shock out. I feel like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Night Dive is doing the System Shock remake.
Okay.
Yeah. So
No, that's why I said I was just like, nope. That you described like it's just you know you want to dabble with the darker side of gaming. It's,
yeah, I think people nowadays
that's where you go. That's how you.
Yeah, they fascinate. They eat that stuff up with a spoon these days. It was like it's almost too good to be true of a game to find. You know, same with Harvester. I think is like you said, very good. So it's definitely it has definitely found a new life. I think it's probably getting the attention that it deserves.
It's you know it's I was thinking
Night Dive also re-released Harvester.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna play that game.
I think Phantasmagoria might have been them as well.
Yeah.
And Night Trap.
And they also did the recent remake of Quake that just came out.
Oh, that's a good remake.
Yeah.
All of these games, all those games you just mentioned, Harvester, Phantasmagoria, it's like those are like those are ripe for the picking.
I will say that that I Have No Mouth is like the perfect thing to be remade.
Yeah.
Like I really like one day maybe. I just think
guess you would have to find the.
I think it's primed to be like, because you can keep intact a lot of those elements that Ellison had, but then that are still relevant, but just
give it a modern treatment.
Yeah.
So
punch up Benny's chapter.
Yeah. Actually, well, I mean, imagine redoing that chapter with the better storyline of him coming to terms with his homosexuality. Like, what if he was a closeted gay man? Like, and that was his thing. It's like, that would be interesting.
Even if it wasn't in the gaming space, it's like I'm kind of surprised this never was. The
novelization.
No attempt to revisit, or just
the
novelization of the game, or
as a game from 1995,
a TV show or film, even. You know,
So
they should turn it into a first-person shooter. That's my input.
The only award that would win is like the worst adaptation of like a linear narrative. But as for Harlan Ellison, he did pass away in 2018, but obviously had plenty of time to reflect upon all of this. From interviews, he seemed very pleased with how the product turned out. He never put it down. He never said it turned out awful, I don't like it. He seemed pleased. In fact, if anything, I think he was genuinely tickled by the fact that it didn't sell that well and he thought people were annoyed. Still continued to insist that he made it unbeatable. Which fine, just let him, if that's how he felt. In terms of sales,
this I kind of like. I want to know. I mean, is that information out there?
I don't know the sales numbers that he got, but he says, in terms of royalties, he made basically no money off of this game because obviously the company closed up within 2 years, and a lot of royalties are like they're perpetual, so you expect to make the money back over time versus like upfront sum. He claims. And I mean, Harlan strikes me as a dude who is prone to exaggeration, but he claims that when Cyberdreams went belly up, the CEO absconded with all the company's money, his royalties included. So he basically says that the CEO stole the money, which I could not find any verification or validation for this information, but what a story that would be.
Seriously.
It's like, so also at that point, MGM was the distributor of the game. And so, they were still around for him to talk to about money. The settlement came to almost nothing. Not one to take one lying down and just chalk it up to a loss. He negotiated for some of the lost cash in the form of unsold units of the game and several thousands of the mouse pads that came in the game box. And that leads us to our final note of the night. Two of them, actually.
Together,
Randall, where do you think all of those unsold physical copies of the game might have ended up? Who do you think might have found those? Oh, we have a winner. Limited run games.
I was pointing to a piece of our decor in the studio of the limited physical release of Night Trap.
Yes. Limited run games. Okay. And this is just a mind-blowing coincidence. On August
Nobody
10th,
saw this coming.
On August 10th. Well, actually, August 9th, they announced it. The night before they were going to do it. On August...
they deleted the tweet immediately.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, they deleted it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. On August
So
10th.
Randy screenshotted it.
I did.
Yeah.
Nothing gets past me
Oh God, just
when it comes to
dude, a Twitter feed with a
rare
Vice script.
pressings of
Yeah. So on August 10th,
black ass games.
Limited Run Games got their hands on these unsold copies of the game and decided to drop us scraps from their banquet table so that we could rend our flesh over 100 piddly-ass copies of this probably one of the most rare sought-after games of all time, okay? And not only that, but it's like, listen to what came with it, okay? It included the original unopened physical release of the game enclosed within the box set. So it came with the unopened copy of the game so that they weren't gonna, you know, you just had the original copy. And then
I guess were either just shelved or recalled or just like eventually.
It was Harlan Ellison's personal collection. Those were the games that he negotiated with. Remember?
Yeah.
So as a form of royalties, he was like, if I can't get the royalty money, give me copies of my own game. He never got rid of them. This was from his unreleased collection that those people bought up.
Holy
okay.
shit! I thought these were like sent back. Like
no,
you know,
no. These literally probably sat
incredible
in a vault or a closet somewhere. And probably when Harlan died in 2018, his estate probably was like, what are we going to do with these limited run games? We're probably like, dude, our specialty is preserving the history of these games.
Yeah.
Let us sell it for you. And they probably were like, okay, yeah, it's fine.
It's
like,
the most impressive thing that group has ever done, and they've come
yeah.
up on this show a few times now. But like,
yeah, I mean, I make fun of limited run games, but at the same time, it's like they're doing God's work.
yeah, this felt different. Like there is a little bit of artificial demand with like some of their previous.
I mean, it's possible that there was only 100 units of the game actually in his
No, that's what I mean.
collection.
That's what this like was.
Yeah.
This was a separate
Yeah. So
event entirely.
So in the box set,
and I should point out real quick that there was 100 unsold copies of the Windows PC version. There were 300 of the Mac.
I didn't know
OS
that.
version.
Actually, shit, I didn't know that. I had no idea. I had no idea.
You know why I know that?
How?
All right. So we're gonna do a live reveal on the air. This literally just came in over the weekend.
No. What?
Yeah, you guys.
What is
ready?
about to
Keep
happen?
this all in, by the way.
There is no fucking way.
An audio unboxing.
Ladies and gentlemen, he is pulling out.
The dog is very excited.
Oh yeah, fuses. Oh my God, it's glorious.
Wait, let me see.
Lee,
Holy crap.
I don't fucking believe it. Oh my
it has
God.
the speech on the back.
Dude,
Yeah.
that is one of the most beautiful boxes I have ever seen.
I know.
Oh,
I've been sitting here stewing. I've like just.
how did you keep that in till the end of this entire recording session? You are the man. I can't believe you.
Dude, I've been so like just.
When did that come
Yeah,
in?
I was just amped for you all to see this. Over the weekend. That was like Saturday, like before the your thing. Like
I am so genuinely impressed with you guys. That is insane.
yeah.
Oh my God. Dude, so you now realize that
Maybe
That
he
is-
held it.
that's maybe, yeah, that came from his collection, man.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. I am floored.
I guess they were limited run put them out for 200, and
yeah.
I was lucky enough. So the Windows copies went up technically 4 or 6 seconds before noon, and were
Yeah, and they were
ganked
gone.
immediately.
Yeah, they were gone.
These stayed up for slightly longer. Here's one at Macari right now going for 980. So as you can see,
my
scalpers and
God.
flippers.
You found a copy of it on
Jumped on this
Macari.
shit fast. No. Well, I found a copy of Macari 'cause they just started coming in.
Oh, God, yeah.
Usually limited run stuff takes a little while because they have to, actually produce them. But because
Yeah.
these were,
That's
already
incredible.
there, yeah, that it didn't take too long. But
Randall,
it's a
I am
piece of gaming history. We wanted this artifact. Me and Austin discussed it for you know,
Yeah,
for
no.
the room. Like
I think
this-
are you gonna place it up on your trophy
Oh,
case?
yeah.
Yeah, you bravo.
Was-
You knew about this?
Oh yeah.
You
I
are.
didn't know it came in.
Yeah.
I knew he bought it.
I have no intention at all of you know of selling it.
Oh yeah, no, you keep that. That is really just one of truly a marvelous find. Truly,
It's fucking striking.
and honestly,
But I
it's
didn't
just
mean
like,
to-
no, I can't believe you guys were like, I can't believe you were able to keep that held in the entire time.
I've been waiting
Wow.
for that, you know,
So,
the
but
ta-da moment I could pull.
since we aren't going to be, we're going to be leaving that nice and pristine. I shall read off what you now own, Randy, inside of
yes,
this.
yeah,
So,
lay it on me.
an
I
original.
sure as fuck ain't gonna take a.
Oh yeah, no, do not open
letter
that.
opener to that.
Dude, don't ever open that. So the original unopened physical release of the game enclosed within the box. So within the box there is a 95
yes.
copy of that of the box itself
Yeah.
in there. It comes with a mouse pad bearing Harlan's face, so one of the mouse pads. A hate USB drive, so just a USB drive with hate
Yeah,
printed
and it's
on
a
the
little
side.
goopy looking. It's
Yeah,
weird.
Yeah. A face mask, of course.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, very
relevant
relevant.
at the time. So
Yeah. A foil sticker, an enamel pin, and an individually numbered lithograph. So basically the number of the collector
Gotcha.
item. So,
All right.
and to
Shame,
top it all
look
off,
at that sticker.
the best thing in this box by far, a bronze cast figurine of the Great Soft Jelly is in that box, which is just, imagine the
Oh,
reaction
man.
of that, having that on your desk. So, as you mentioned, the collector's edition was $200 on limited run games, limit one per customer.
Yeah.
That did not stop the game from selling out before the second hand even passed the 12.
Oh, yeah. No, I was pissed because I was
Oh,
I was
yeah.
going for the Windows version and
Yeah. So just to put that in perspective, within milliseconds they collected $20,000 instantly, which is like, my God.
Not to mention the 300 Mac copies would be an additional 60,000.
Oh my
there
God.
you go.
So 80,000.
I wonder how much it
Within
cost them to
minutes.
buy the unsold units though, because if they made $80,000, how much do you think it cost them to pick up the games?
I don't know. Because a lot of limited stuff are usually between 3,000 and 8,000 units on average. Maybe
Yeah.
some of the earlier ones a little less, some of the more popular ones a little more. But
Yeah.
this was a special kind of like.
Oh yeah. So I mean, again, goes to show you the popularity this game now has.
I know. I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting, and because it's funny. Full disclosure, I was actually in search for a physical edition of this game prior to that announcement because I wanted to find you one.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
yeah, and like
Yeah, he was
for
gonna
like
get-
a gift.
He was good because we. Full disclosure to the audience, we've had the idea to do this episode for
Quite some time.
quite some time.
Yeah.
We saved it for Halloween. And yeah, me and Randy were looking up physical copies. Was that for Matt's birthday?
I think so. Back in May.
Was it tough to find?
It was impossible.
Impossible.
I
So-
found
There was
one,
one eBay listing for $1,900 or
Yeah.
something like
My
that.
God.
I found
Yeah.
two. I found another copy. There were two copies. One was sealed in the box, the big box with the mouse pad
Yeah.
for $1,900, and the other one was just the jewel case
Yeah.
Oh,
of
with
the
none of the
game
other goodies inside.
with
yeah.
for like a couple $100.
That's
Yeah.
still quite a lot for a
Yeah.
jewel case.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
And then all of a sudden, when this happened,
Those even.
there were like people who were like, "I own that; it's worth $200," and there was like more listings of the original.
wow. Yeah, that
But-
makes sense. Yeah,
but a lot of them are missing the mouse pad.
So,
They
but
are. Yeah, that's true.
so
We know it's authentic.
well, we know what happened to the unsold units of the game. There's one sitting literally right in front of me right now. But what about the mouse
Yeah,
pads?
hold it.
And this is also a very, very funny story.
Feel its power.
So Harlan, he got the mouse pads. He decided to simply donate them to the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Society. He was probably close.
good for him.
He was
That's
probably
cool.
close to these people. A lot of fantasy and sci-fi authors get close to like these societies because they're, they're his fans essentially.
Yeah.
So this society was responsible for the running the North American Science Fiction Convention, also in Los Angeles. And so what did they do with them? They gave them away in these swag bags of the 1999 Expo that they had. And so they just gave them away, which is like, if you think about it, a mouse pad is like, that is what you get in swag bags. That's it. And they didn't
have to set an alarm in their phone to desperately.
No, they didn't have to claw their way through 100 other people to get their mouse pad.
Fucking bots.
But so once that was done, they filled all the bags that they needed. They still had a bunch left over. And so what they decided to do with all the leftovers were collected, and a couple of very talented people made an outfit out of the mouse pads, actually. And it was a full costume, and one of the creators, her name was, I have it here, Colleen Crosby. She actually got to wear it. It's kind of like a dress and a hat sort of thing. She wore it and walked across stage in full costume and posed with Ellison at the convention that year. And there's a photo of him. He looks so amused by this, and she looks so proud of this.
This has to be in our thumbnail.
You need to look up this photo of her posing in this dress, and it is really fabulous. And he seems so pleased with that. And I think that's where I'll end it right there. That's
such a good high note.
Yeah. So I got to let me see if I'll see if I can find that photo, but in the meantime, feel free to, wrap everything up, I suppose.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Matt, for hosting.
Oh, yes. A million thank yous.
Please
sincerely.
Ask me anytime.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a 4 hours.
I can't believe.
Yeah, it's 12:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But, and thank you all for listening. If you want to know more about some of the other stuff we mentioned, or we got.
Oh yeah, this is just the beginning.
We're coming up on 100 episodes.
Yeah, you are.
Sometime next year, we got this will be 90, 91, something like that. Yeah, we're getting there. You can find all of our episodes and more, and the Halloween episodes to come, and our anniversary coverage and our Game of the Year coverage, all that.
And if you're into that creepy stuff like us, then dig into our 2018 and 20. How long have we been doing this?
2019 and 2020 Halloween.
Yeah.
I found it, by the way. The photo of it's on Moby Games of all things.
Moby Games. You used to write for them.
Yeah,
I used to get a lot of.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, they're a great resource for this type of historical.
Oh
content
yeah, they have a lot of finer
details.
details.
So check it out. Look at how pleased she looks, and look at how amused he looks. It's just a wonderful, and it's very 90s flash photography photo for sure.
God.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
show Randy. It's just straight up. She made an entire dress, or I guess they made an entire dress out of it, which is just wonderful.
Sick.
That's a very 90s sci-fi fan thing to do. I also think it's very fun that he was just at the convention like that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
able to see it.
Hanging out.
But yeah. All right. Anyway.
All right. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks. Check out hotbuttoncast.com for all our episodes and more. Subscribe on iTunes and Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts. And follow us on social media for news about future episodes.
Heck yeah.
Hot Button Cast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
All right, everybody put your hands in on the
oh yeah. Okay.
The mythical
Oh yeah, everybody put your hands. We're gonna recite the mantra, okay? Yes.
If I cut that open, our faces are gonna melt
Oh, yo, if we actually look inside of it, our faces are gonna melt like Raiders of the Lost Ark. All the Nazis' faces melt as we look at it. Our souls get trapped within the game box.
Hate.
It is so. Yeah, it really is. What a marvelous looking thing. It's all foil and shiny, and on the back of it is just the hate speech from the monologue that we had mentioned. So, all right.
Well, thanks for listening.
If this episode comes out before Halloween, happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not gonna come out before Halloween. Let's see.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Good night, everybody. Good night.